Welcome. Welcome to the June 12th, 2022 Littleton Select Board meeting. If that is not your real destination, I urge you to debark immediately. We'll begin as we usually do with the Pledge of Allegiance. Mr. Clerk.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. We have a chock-full agenda tonight. We have an informational presentation from Mr. Brian Beltrami for his Eagle Scout project. Following that, department and board updates, fire department amendment to the employment agreement. Town planner will review the new Mbta Communities guidelines and will be approving a contract, hopefully, for consultant services to develop our zoning bylaw. We have a joint meeting with the Finance Committee to discuss the FY24 budget calendar and the FY23 supplemental operating and capital budget requests. A joint meeting with Parks and Rec to discuss the potential location of new tennis courts in town. Public input, that will be followed by appointments to several boards. Following that, some liquor licenses. Then we will review the warrant for special town meeting November 1st. We have some select board discussions on 12 Robinson Road, on the Economic Development Committee membership, and on the Nagog Hill Orchard. And then the town administrator update, tax title abutter lot sale program. We will discuss the use of Littleton Common for a meeting house market. Community Care Collective will approve a marijuana manufacturing license. And finally, an RFI for affordable senior housing at Town Hall campus will be discussed. The minutes, and then we will adjourn, hopefully before the scheduled 9:50. Before we begin, I do want to address one thing. I'm sure that the other board members have gotten a lot of emails and or messages or discussions about the recent Globe article about the many gun dealers in the mill. And I don't think that we can speak to any specifics, but I will say that the town administration, this board, other town boards, and our public safety officers are aware of the situation and are and are working hard to understand what we can do about it, both in this immediate short term and in the long term, to help the town deal with, like a cluster like this. So that's all I had to say. Mr. Town Administrator, you want to kick it off?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Excuse me. There's two things in for the mail packet. The first is an invitation from Liz Trediak, our Director of Elder and Human Services, just in reminding the board of some dates. A women's breakfast on 9/14, beginning at 8 o'clock in the senior diner. The Police and Fire Council on Aging Barbecue is Thursday, September 15th at noon at the fire station. The men's breakfast is September 21st at 8 o'clock in the senior diner. And the veterans breakfast is September 28th at 7:30 in the morning in the senior diner. The second item, we received concerted effort from the Sudbury Valley trustees, the Littleton Conservation Department, and the Littleton Conservation Trust on a hands-on invasive species program that's going to be put on Saturday, September 17th from 9 to 11 at Browns Woods, which is 119 to Hadawan Road. They mentioned learn to identify some common invasive species and some of their native lookalikes, discuss management methods, put your training to use, and help pull the invasives at Browns Woods and become certified as a weed warrior. And that's all we have for the mail packet.
On to Mr. Beltrami. Are you with us? Hello. Would you want to come up to the podium and introduce yourself and discuss your project?
So I'm Brian Beltrami. I'm currently working on my Eagle Scout, and what I was planning on doing for my project is improving upon the town forest trailhead over on Harwood Avenue. Right now it's just a dirt slope, which is not particularly the safest for anyone to get down, especially when it's, say, raining or when it's dark out. And so what I'm planning on doing is installing some steps there that would, allow further access down onto the trail, and I think would help to encourage foot traffic on the trail.
Okay. And you need us to approve the use of town property?
Yes.
Okay. Any questions from the board?
I'm
appreciate the packet that Brian submitted to us, where he showed some, basically, what's been done by another scout project on Whitcomb Ave, which is essentially gonna be a similar design to what you've proposed on Harwood Ave.
Yes.
And I think it's gonna definitely improve the site, and with all the work of a previous scout project, Mr. Lavoy, I think this will dovetail nicely with that and hopefully improve upon the foot traffic as Brian proposed.
Great. Any other comments?
No.
All right, all ready for a motion?
Happy to. Move the select board vote to grant permission to Eagle Scout candidate Brian Beltrami for his Harwood Ave Trailhead project, which includes clearing the town forest trailhead located at Harwood Ave of the overgrown weeds and other debris and installing stairs onto the sloped entrance leading to the hiking trail.
Second.
Motion is made by Chuck, seconded by Mark. Any further comments? No? Let's vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? The ayes have it. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Good luck,
Thank
Brian.
you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. We're on to department and board updates and requests. Mr. Administrator, you want to introduce these?
Sure. The first one is for the fire department, and I think it's something that the board has discussed at a previous executive session. It's an amendment to the chief's employment contract, which the chief is a 24/7, 365 employee. Thank you, chief. And with that, the vehicle, as it originally stood in his contract, didn't allow for 24/7 access to that vehicle for even when he has some personal business. So the contract was amended based on the board's suggestions from the last meeting to reflect that.
So my recollection as well is we discussed what the designation of clearly marked was. Are you comfortable with the language that's in the packet? Because. Yes. Okay, all right, good, okay. In that case, are there any discussions from the board about this? Okay, let's do a motion then.
Move the select board vote to approve the first amendment to the employment agreement with Fire Chief Robert Connor.
Second.
Motion made by Chuck, seconded by Cindy. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. The ayes have it. Congratulations, you have a car. All right. And when we're off.
The second item, Mr. Chair, we asked our town planner, Maren Toohill, to provide us, now that the guidelines are in, the final guidelines for the Mbta Communities, what that means for us. And I know that Maren spent a tremendous amount of work on this, going to trainings to fully understand it. I think that she has a pretty good grasp on it now, and I think she just wants to present to the board, just so if you have any questions, you can ask of her, but to understand the guidelines that the state came up with a little bit better for us.
Thank you, Anthony. Good evening, everybody. My name is Maren Toohill. I'm the town planner for the town of Littleton. Last I spoke with you officially about the Mbta Communities zoning was in January, where we did the required update to the select board about the new law. So back again to give you just what's new since that time. So what brought us here? There was new legislation, so it's the law that the town must zone to allow multifamily housing near the commuter rail station. But it's all about the important details. The draft guidelines were issued in December. The final guidelines came out in August, and the state is now looking at how to help communities come into compliance. So backing up a couple steps, what's zoning? Zoning is how the town sets the table for the development we want, for what we want Littleton to look like in the future. So what's multifamily housing? I know there's a vision that it's big apartments, but that's not how it's defined in the law. Multifamily means a building with 3 or more residential units, or a lot with 2 or more buildings on it, that each of those buildings have 2 or more housing units in them. So there's anything from a triplex or 2 duplexes on a lot up to, mid-rise or high-rise. So there's a whole bunch of, there's quite a range of the possibilities of what multifamily housing is. Okay, Mbta Communities, The designations have changed a little bit, but Littleton is still a commuter rail community. You can see there's a lot of other communities in the state that are working through this same issue. So what are the requirements? Littleton is still a commuter rail community. The minimum zoning district size for Littleton is still 50 acres. What's changed is that only 20% of the district has to be within half a mile of the commuter rail station. For Littleton, what that allows us to do is keep the focus on Littleton Common and the King Street Common. That's called for in our master plan. That's all the work we're doing with town sewer. And it relieves some of the pressure for compliance that had been put on the Foster Street site. So the minimum gross density, or the average gross density across the entire district is still 15 units per acre. Recall that we have 20 units per acre across the district at the King Street site, so that'll give us some more leeway at near the train station. The zoning has to be as of right, so it means that it can't require a special permit. And the site must be able to be served by infrastructure, water, electricity, sewer, roadways. And the state has also developed a compliance model to help towns understand how to meet the new law. And the state will be using that as well to make sure that towns are meeting the new bylaw, or meeting the new, I said bylaw, I should have said law. So what do? We've done a lot of the foundational planning work, master plan, the Littleton Common Revitalization Roadmap, the station area study. We've done a lot of work around Littleton Common. The picture up there is the newly approved King Street Common development, which of course coincides with town sewer and all the work the water and sewer department are doing on that. So what have we done for planning at Foster Street? We've done quite a bit. Now it needs to be refreshed. So, oh, and then the next picture is also the all the infrastructure at Foster Street. The key, of course, is the commuter rail station and the tens, if not hundreds of millions of dollars that have gone into creating that station and providing the service. The other pictures, of course, are the upgrades that are coming to Foster Street. So what do we need to do and when do we need to do it? I outlined this list, highlighting that we have gotten some of it accomplished already. And then the next one is, next slide just shows a little more detail on, or a blow up of the detail of what's next to do. Work this month is to hire a planning consultant to get us through the next step of drafting the bylaw and doing the public outreach. So how are communities going to comply? The state is offering technical assistance. Littleton was awarded a EEA planning assistance grant to hire a consultant to get us through, and we'll be using the compliance model that I mentioned earlier. And so what happened recently, I was able to sit in on the webinar training. Next step, contract with the planning consultant. We'll talk about that in just a moment. And the next deadline is for us to file by January 31st our action plan, which is really a fairly simple program saying how we're hoping to comply and the time frame. Let's see. So there's quite a few resources. The mass.gov website for multifamily zoning was updated even since the version that was included in your packet. They've now included the slides and the presentation from the September 8th training session. So I did add one of the pictures from the missing middle housing. I think this one is really good at showing the range of housing options. We're real good at building the houses on the left, the single-family homes. We're here from the community that they're not that interested in the multifamily, large apartments that are shown on the right, but what remains is the missing middle housing. So will be a lot of options available to the town to decide what we want the zoning to look like. Other than that, open for questions.
Thank you. So you mentioned that the land has to have access to utilities. Would the cost of those, like water being extended into the development, be borne by the developer just as it would with any other development in town?
Right, there's no requirement for the community to provide the services for a particular development. It just has to have the capacity to serve a site.
And then I also saw somewhere in here, there's a table that shows there's a percentage that has to be multifamily based on, am I misreading that?
Let's see, so Littleton's, yes, that's right. But that was a minimum that some small communities couldn't meet, so their number of units that they needed to zone for was dropped.
Okay.
Littleton's remained at 750.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions?
No, I think it's just important to note that one of the points that you reiterated was the fact that it was codified that it doesn't have to be within 1.5 mile of the commuter rail station. Only 20% has to be within 1.5 mile, which does take, like you said, a large burden off of that area if in fact there wasn't an appetite for us to put something up within 1/2 mile of the commuter rail station. And the fact that we do have King Street Common well down the road, with a lot of, the master plan's been approved and so forth. The fact that we service that site and get people to the commuter rail station from that site, I think is a good feeder for this. And I think it lends well for us to not have to build additional multi-unit housing at the on the Foster Street site or within 1/2 mile, other than the 20% to meet the requirements of the law.
Yeah, I would categorize the King Street Common as a piece of the puzzle, but a large piece of the puzzle.
Right.
The state does still expect zoning to allow for multifamily near the commuter rail station, but like you said, 20% of the district, or 20% of the 50-acre requirement needs to be at the commuter rail station.
Will King Street Common satisfy all of the rest, all of the 80% of the rest of that multifamily? Do you know?
The way it's written, yes,
Okay.
it will.
Okay.
Yeah, if I may, thank you, Maren, so much for your continued work on this. I know it's a lot, and we appreciate all of your hard work and commitment. One question is, do you have any idea how many housing units this might result in at the train station with this change, potentially?
That'll be part of the decision for the town to make going forward.
Okay,
Doing the numbers, the minimum is probably, well, I hate to guess what it might be. It has to be, the zoning has to allow for development that's economically feasible. So in order to support water, sewer, roadway, getting all the utilities and access to the site, has to allow the developer to still develop it. So that's a number that's higher than, probably higher than 150 units, which if we can count 600 units at King Street Common, then we have 150 units left to zone for. But, without diving in with the consultant on, what's economically feasible, we can't say that yet.
right, because there's no sewer, as we know, in that area of town, so that would require a treatment plant or some other costly project
Right.
that would increase the developer's overall cost of the project. And do you, any idea how many of these units would be affordable?
My recommendation is that we keep the inclusionary housing zoning a minimum of 10% affordable for any rezoning we do in that area.
Okay,
And that way it'll match the maximum affordability requirement allowed by the law, by the MBTA Communities law.
Okay, and my last comment is, the planning board's website, your webpage on the town website is excellent. And I think that a lot of people can't find it, or they're not used to navigating our website. Is there any way to get information about this project and 550 King Street move to a landing page on the homepage that then would direct them to the planning board website page? I think I think residents overall would appreciate being able to just get on the website and have easy access to all this information, which we know is already there, but it's just kind of set in the back of the planning board page. So that would just be my only suggestion.
Okay, we can take a look, see
Okay.
what it would take to make that happen.
Okay, great, thank you.
Thank you.
Mark, do you have anything?
Who approves the action plan?
Who approves the action plan? My guess would be that since it's a rezoning schedule and rezoning initiative, my guess is planning board. But that's
We have to submit the action plan to the state.
correct.
Is that what your question
So it
was?
says we have to submit an action plan to the state.
DHCD?
But I mean, you're working with a consultant for it, on it, but then is the planning board's reviewing and approving your work, or is the select board? Or what boards, and how is that being
That's a very good question.
socialized?
I hadn't thought of that question before. Like I said, my guess is planning board. If that needs further discussion, certainly happy to have it.
Because it seems like I mean, depending on what it's committing us to, and things, it'd be good to make sure that that has the right public forums, and public exposure to it.
One more. I know that, that when we were discussing development along Foster Street, there was a little bit of resistance in town. What are the consequences of not doing this?
For Littleton, I would say that's the $20 million question. Access to significant grant funds.
For example, for the sewer project that the Mass Works grant and so forth?
Yeah, Mass Works
Okay.
grant is probably the highest dollar one, housing choice grants. And there's also the community infrastructure funds
Okay, thank you.
program.
Any other questions on this one?
No,
Just a point of clarification, this requires us to allow for the zoning for the multi-unit dwellings within a half mile, if we're looking to satisfy that 20% or 150 units. It doesn't have to be an as-built, we have to say, in this zone, we will allow for multi-unit dwelling.
Correct.
And we
That would
still
be
then
our-
get, we will approve the plans, approve the layout, developments, and so forth?
What the law requires is for the town to update our zoning
Zoning.
to allow it.
Okay,
we don't have to build it.
No.
But the approval can't require a special permit, it's just a
Correct.
normal.
oh, got it, okay. All right, shall we go on to the next item then? Sure.
Thanks,
Yep.
Myron. Thank you.
And do you want to start?
Yeah.
So the next item is, Myron mentioned just a few minutes ago about that planning grant. I think at the last 2 meetings ago, the select board approved accepting that grant for $50,000 that we received. Now, after going out through competitive bidding, we've identified, Myron's identified a lowest capable bidder, Innis Associates, is that how you say that? Innis Associates, and the contract's for $45,000. So what the request is the select board approve, authorize the town administrator to sign the contract, and so we can move forward with the planning grant.
Okay, thank you. Are there any comments on this from the board members?
Already had the discussion.
Okay, then let's.
The only question I have, Anthony, do you want, when I make the motion, do you want to say or designate after town administrator, if you're not here and Ryan needs to sign it?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Thank you, Chuck.
All right.
Move the select board vote to authorize the town administrator or designee to sign a contract with Innis Associates LTD for $45,500 for consultant services to develop a multifamily zoning bylaw for MBTA communities.
Second.
Make me choose every time. Motion made by Chuck, seconded because it was Mark's turn by Mark. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. The motion carries 4-0. Thank you very much, Mayor.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. All right, joint meeting with the Finance Committee. Hello, Finance Committee. Hello. Welcome. Would you like to open your meeting?
Yeah, sure. So, we have a quorum, so I'll open the meeting of September 12th, joint meeting of the Board of Selectmen for FinCom.
Welcome.
So we're good.
Mr. Ansaldi, do you want to kick us off?
Sure, thank you. So we have Alicia joining us remotely. Unfortunately, she wasn't feeling well, so we told her to participate remotely. Thank you,
No
Alicia.
offense.
So there's, the first item is the budget calendar. I believe that was presented at the last meeting, and it was recommended to discuss it jointly with the Finance Committee. We asked the Finance Committee to join us, which they have, and Alicia, I don't know if you want to add to you put a lot of work into making this calendar doable for you, considering everything that you have to do to comply with DOR and closing the books for the last fiscal year, getting free cash certified in time for town meeting, audits. So Alicia has a lot on her plate, so she really tried to look at this and not necessarily leave it to date specific, but really month, so it allows her the flexibility working with our office to throughout the budget process. Alicia, you want to add anything?
Yes, thank you, Anthony. Thank you, Honorable Select Board. I apologize, I have bronchitis and I didn't want to be coughing around everybody this evening. Yes, I wanted to take out specific dates. I wanted more flexibility because there's so much that's done, especially state-specific with state-specific dates that I have to submit reporting. So I needed more flexibility. In addition to that, last year was my first year through the budgeting process. So I thought it would make a lot more sense, so I added it for the town administrator and I to go through the budget with each department before we assemble the whole thing together. In tandem, I have to still account for the tax classification hearing that comes up right around that time, and then the budget that's due in December. So I really wanted to have more flexibility so I'd be able to meet all the needs of the state plus the ability to meet your needs.
Thank you. Does anyone have comment? The board members have comments on the calendar?
I have one question.
Oh, yeah.
So Alicia, in February, joint budget and capital working session with departments and others is requested. Who participates in that joint meeting?
In the, it would be the smaller department budgets at first. And then what I wanted to do was to take the larger, including the school. So I wanted to strike the part where I put schools separate in the February. And the school is the largest department budget, so to strike that out and leave that. But it would be definitely the joint finance committee and select board with the smaller departments in January and February, and then the larger like police, DPW, fire, schools would be in February with the finance committee and the select board.
Okay, so that's finance and select board as well. Okay.
Yes.
Thanks.
Finance Committee, do you have any comments on this?
Yeah, and I guess, are we still planning on kind of the Super Saturday, for the large budget? Okay.
That's what you were referring to just now.
In February.
Right, that would be
In
January, February, between the smaller departments and the larger departments.
I have a question on the September, October, when you're giving the budget. In September, you give, you ask the departments to build their budget. And then in October, you're giving them, requiring them to give it back. I assume at the point you're giving them, you're actually giving them a date certain, not just.
Yes,
you know,
correct. So I didn't want to submit it yet. I wanted to wait till after this meeting to send out the documentation to the departments.
Okay.
Do you have any other comments, or?
I mean, this is the first time I've seen it, but what's different from last year? I mean, it's clearly different from before I get thrown off FinCom. What is different from last year?
The biggest
It seemed to work
difference,
okay.
through the chair, the
Yes.
biggest difference, Finance Committee member Faulkner, is the Finance Director Town Administrator review request for final submission in October and November. Otherwise, I just stripped all the specific dates out to give myself more flexibility.
Okay.
Okay. Do we have do we need a motion to approve it?
Please.
Okay, is there any further discussion on this?
No, I think we're
Okay.
okay.
All right, Mr. Clerk?
Absolutely. The only thing I'm going to add is that I think that we've mentioned a few times that we've gotten a lot out of meeting with the department heads. And I'd rather do that more frequently than less frequently with the two boards involved, because I think some of those candid conversations may not be something that we're going to be addressing in the current fiscal year's budget, but I do think it's something that we should have those conversations more frequently. And if it happens twice a year, that's more frequently than what we've done in the past. And if it happens 3 times a year and we can have a goal of getting to quarterly, that would be great. I think the department heads appreciate it, and I know that in speaking with each of you, I think that we all got something out of that.
It's very valuable.
I agree that we should be doing something like that again, preferably before the budgets are set, so that all the departments have an idea what everyone else is asking for, and then they can adjust potentially accordingly. Because that's what I got out of when we were meeting with everyone, that everyone had their own request, and if you get them all together, then they have the potential to work together and horse trade,
Sure.
some hours and things.
Yeah, I don't need to get that this year if we
Much better
need
to
it,
do that rather than having them all meet individually with us.
Agreed.
Yeah, I mean, philosophically, FinCom agrees. I mean, the more we talk with the department heads, I think the more value we have. We're gonna have, as we have in just past, finance committee liaisons, which will reach out to all
Yes.
the departments to answer or ask any questions during the, in the process as well.
And we've talked about the possibility of doing that, just that there's only so many nights that we can.
I absolutely love the notion of floating the dates. I just say, obviously, Super Saturday, as much lead time as we can have, because Saturdays are tough.
Yeah.
Much lead time as possible within all the other constraints would be cool.
For sure.
Practically speaking, do we need 2 motions, one for this board and one for FinCom? Or is this just a select board vote tonight?
I would say FinCom first and then the select board.
2 separate votes. is
Okay.
fine.
Okay, so can I entertain a motion to approve the budget calendar as recommended?
You're the chair, you can entertain
I
any.
have a motion.
Well, you
Tough
have-
crowd.
So,
Second?
Second.
All right, all in favor? Aye.
Mr. Clerk?
All right, I move the select board vote to approve the FY '24 budget calendar as presented and approved by the finance director and the town administrator, as well as the FinCom.
Second.
Motion made by Chuck, seconded by Mark. All those in favor say aye.
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 The motion carries 4-0. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Everybody.
Thanks, Alicia.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Thank you. Our next item for both boards to discuss is the supplemental operating and capital budgets that were submitted. Your last meeting, you had a kind of general request that was summarized, I think, in a spreadsheet, but we wanted to do a deeper dive and not just look at the impacts for the 6 months that we're in for the rest of this fiscal year, but what that meant for next year for the budget. In doing that, Alicia and I went through this, and we wanted to make a recommendation to the board on what we felt after discussing with the various departments, some which have pulled back their request, and understanding that, I'd love to recommend to you to do everything, but, I think that we all see what's going on in the world today, right? We're faced with still rising interest rates. They're projecting more interest rate hikes in the next calendar year. That's a concern. It brings the house values and tries to control that. It also makes it more costly for spending and for borrowing. For us, one thing that we're seeing right now is a decrease in our building permits, and that's part of the local receipts that we count on. Sure, we're gonna get the property tax, and that's the big bulk of it, and state aid certainly looks like they have enough coffers to match what we think that they're gonna give us, but it's that third revenue source is the local receipts that we're concerned about. We're concerned about the fact that, one, like I said, the building permits are down. Number two, I think that we all see what's going on with motor vehicles, right? You just can't get a new car. What does that mean for us? Well, we have a large chunk of money that we rely upon excise tax. And if people can't get new cars, they're just gonna keep their existing cars, and that depreciates pretty quickly. So we're concerned with a hit to our local receipts as far as the motor vehicle excise. And obviously, the building permits, why that's important, because that helps us determine what our new growth number is in establishing our levy. So in going through this, and Alicia, I don't know if you want to add anything before I go through the spreadsheet on what we recommended?
Thank you, Anthony, but I think you touched on all the big button items. I appreciate it, so you can continue.
All right, thank you. So if I may, just going through down the list, and I'll give you what we're recommending and the reason why we're recommending or not recommending. So the first one is the town clerk. She's requested $10,605. I think you heard Diane maybe about a month and a half ago come before you and tell you with the new early voting law that it requires a police detail for every single time that we have that. You know, it's unfortunate that we have to do that. It's an unfunded mandate, but we have to do that. And it's something that we didn't budget for. So based on the rest of the elections that she has for this fiscal year, that's the number that she would need for her budget. Also, another thing that we did is in previous years, the overtime for police officers working those was under the police chief's budget. Actually, it's supposed to be under the town clerk's budget. So what we did is we decreased the police budget for that money that he had budgeted for elections to move that over to the town clerk's budget.
Anthony, let me just jump in. if I
Sure.
may, Chair. But we weren't anticipating that overtime, so we're taking money out of the police chief's budget that if we weren't anticipating, the town clerk wasn't anticipating because it's a new unfunded mandate. So we're taking that money out of the chief, so are we gonna have to backfill that at some
No,
point
because
as
that
well,
was
or-
money that was budgeted for elections. So when you went to the polls, you already saw a police
Correct.
officer. So that's the money that was in the police chief's budget. So all we did is.
But that's
moved it-
still happening.
Yes, but we're moving it after town meeting from the police chief's budget to the town clerk's
So
budget.
there's no line in here that says we're lowering the police budget by that.
That's
I
the
think
net
what-
In the original spreadsheet that I submitted to your honorable body, it showed 3,083 as a minus out and 13,688 as a positive in. So what she really needed was 13,688, and with the 3,083 from the police, we have it down to 10,605. That's the net that you're showing.
the
But
net,
the
right.
original one I showed you showed the money coming out of the police.
You showed us.
Sorry, the original handout, the short, the special training
Yes.
Okay,
supplementals, the
I remember
first
that
one.
now.
Yes.
Yeah, that sounds
Thank you.
familiar. Okay.
Any questions, FinCom? Okay,
Sure.
next, okay. Next item is the human resource, increased hours from part-time to full-time position. What we have going on here is there's a plan to move Caitlin to the finance department. And Caitlin's right now who works for Michelle, that full-time position. So that would leave HR with just a half-time position that was previously budgeted. She needs a full-time position. She's got a tremendous amount going on, and to support that and to make that department run effectively, we'd like to see that bumped up to the full-time. Now, for this year, the school department has said, we'll give you $35,000 to bridge the gap. And that's why you see for this year, the net on that is we don't need anything to move forward with funding the position for this year. Although I wanted you to see the impact next year, which is the salary plus the benefits, if that person was to take benefits. So Alicia and I feel where we've certainly struggled with HR, not to Michelle, she's done a great job, but just in all the transitions that we've had over the last few years, that this is something that we believe is important for the success of the organization.
So can I ask, on the 104,000 you're showing is the 2024 impact, it's not that high really, though, is it because it was already a 20-hour position? It's 20 hours plus the benefits,
That's a
not,
delta, that's a
Through
delta.
the chair, it was 19 hours budgeted at 24,934, so the real net effect is 79,306.
okay, thank you.
That's the all-in number.
104 is the all-in number, 79 is the delta.
Correct.
Right, yes, with benefits, right, gotcha.
Okay.
Thank you.
Next
Is-
item?
Is, actually, before you go on through,
Sure.
do you guys have a question about that one? So, I don't know that this is the night that we stand on the hill and fight for this, but I plan on fighting for that $35,000 next year, and the year after, and the year after. If we're taking on, we're doing the HR responsibilities for the schools, and it's great and gracious of them to offer us $35,000 this year. But we're still gonna be doing that same job next year. And frankly, they have the lion's, they have more than 50% of our employees are employed by the school department. So I do think there will be some hill at some point.
Where you're gonna die,
That
is that what
fight
you're
will be
saying?
fought upon.
I agree. I agree with you.
Understood.
I heard
Okay.
Steve saying he's pushing you.
What's that, Tyler?
It sets a precedent, right?
Okay, so the next
Well, let's see
item
about that.
is, we put it under human resources, but this is the class and comps plan study that I think you've been it's been going on for the last 3 years. I have to say, we've been really fortunate to have some really talented residents here. You know, Steve Venuti, Bill Schmidt, Gary Wilson spent a tremendous amount of time kind of getting the data that we got from GovHR and massaging it to the point where the numbers have all been vetted, the formulas and so forth, and jobs were looked at that needed to be looked at. You know, Steve and Bill and Gary put a lot into this, and I think at the next meeting, you'll get the update on where they stand with the class and comm study, but the net difference implementing it for January 1st, because that's what we would propose, is $50,000 increase, and then next year it just went up, you know, by the COLA and the steps to 52. Sorry, I gotta put these back on, I can't see, that's too small. 52,375.
Yep.
Questions, moving along?
Yep.
Fire department, it was a request for an additional firefighter. At this year's impact would have been $52,000. Next year's impact would have been $108,700. We looked at this, and while the board approved the chief's request for really an appropriation transfer within his budget to transfer some overtime to cover, to create another full-time position. We believe at this time that this is something that we are requesting to be held until the budget process. We do support the need for staffing with the fire department. We spoke to the chief about applying for the SAFER grant. The SAFER grant is a grant through FEMA, and that would pay for, in this situation, if we went for 4 firefighters, the first year the federal government pays 100%. And it used to be, yeah, it steps down, exactly, and it used to be 5 years. I don't know if they dropped it to 3, I guess we'll find that out, but it went from 100, 75, 50, 25, and then the town has to bear the full cost of those 4 positions. The grant is good in a way that it gradually brings us there, where putting 4 people on in a year would be somewhere around $500,000. That would be a stretch for us to really be able to fund that and other departments' requests. So, like I said, our recommendation is to not approve the additional firefighter position right now, but make that part of the 4 that we go for the SAFER grant in the fall.
So that would be hiring those people potentially to start when? In January 2024?
Well, the SAFER grant, Chief, feel free to, if you want to jump up and just correct me on it. SAFER grant, well, the application starts somewhere, I think, in October. And they normally award, and it kind of goes on a rolling basis. They may start seeing some of the first awards come later spring, maybe early summer, and then depending on the volume, they may allow for some in August of next year. So where we fit is I don't know how they do that, but obviously we would put the big push in with our congressional delegation as well as our state delegation, as getting all the letters and support to try to get this funding for these 4 positions.
This is FEMA, not MEMA.
FEMA, federal government.
So one thing that I recall from Chief Connor's presentation to us was that we're spending an awful lot of money on overtime for forced call-ins and so forth. And my understanding, and I could be misremembering, is that hiring this body is going to actually remove that overtime, or potentially remove that overtime, because the trend was the overtime was getting greater. So I want to make sure I understand exactly what we're asking for, what you're asking for here.
Yeah. So
Like without the grant, like, you know, getting confusing things,
Without the grant confusing thing, so the things that we can't control are whether we will or will not get the grant. We can make a strong push, as the town administrator said, and we can put all of our ducks in a row when it comes down to it. It's a board of people that decide whether or not we should or should not get it. You're talking about, if you're using these numbers, a cost of $432,000 to add 4 firefighters if we were to do that next year. The plan that I had laid out, and I never want to put the priorities of the fire department over that of the town. So if it's not in the town's financial best interest to have these 2 positions now, then obviously I don't support it either. However, we saw a dramatic, a $200,000 increase in overtime in FY21 to FY22. It's not possible to say whether we will or will not see that again. There are too many variables, but the trend has certainly been to increase. So from my perspective, I look at that as an unfunded liability. We can't determine what that is. What we can do is put people in place that during the highest times where we're busy, we can try to reduce overtime in those times. We can try to put people in place when we know we're going to have issues filling shifts during the day. We're 3 to 5 years into this, we're 4 years now into this paramedic program. We're at the point where employees, if they're not happy with their job environment, are going to start to leave. So that's the other side of things that we have to consider, is what's the cost of replacing employees if they're continued to get forced in without having the staffing. So one of the things that I looked at is possibly, not that I want to do this, but cutting services. Right now, in order to maintain 2 ambulances, we need at the very least 4 people on a shift. If we continue to force people and they continue to burn out, it's really difficult for me to continue to ask them to do that into year 2, year 3. So if we were to drop the minimum staffing to 3, which is a plausible option, then we're really only able to send out 1 ambulance, which cuts our medical service in half. So I certainly understand the financial piece of it, and again, I would never put the fire department's priorities over. I did send the town administrator an email saying that I would be willing to withdraw the request if it's not in the town's best interest financially to do so. But I did want to make sure that we understand the other side of that. There are some liabilities that it's likely I'll be coming back to you in the spring for a reserve transfer, because we either
You'll run through your overtime.
Yeah, we're already. I don't have accurate numbers for tonight, but
Okay.
we're already expending quite a bit.
And if I could add to the chief, so part of his budget request, what we would anticipate is that he would request those 4. And then off on our spreadsheet, we'd have a possible funding sources being that Assistance to Firefighters Safer Grant. In any event that we didn't get it, we still have some time before our budget process comes through that we may, if we do not get it, the board may want to, both boards may want to discuss at that point, how do we address that if we don't get the funding through the
Within the
grant?
normal budget cycle.
Within the
The
normal
FY24
budget cycle, right, through the FY24. So I would expect to see that coming through as part of the budget cycle.
Mr. Beduti?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Technically not part of the finance committee, but
What are you doing here?
just to ask you a question, Chief.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. What's causing the overtime? Is it extra calls, or is it filling in for shifts not covered by?
Yeah, so some of it is benefit time, some of it is call-outs, some of it was COVID. But what happened is we started this snowball of forced overtime. And what happened is people were taking overtime to start. Our forced overtime rate is double time. So if somebody's forced in, they're paid 2 times the regular rate. What was happening is, at first, when we started seeing turnover, long-term injuries, those are all things that are happening right now. People were taking overtime. But then, as we were continuing to need to fill shifts, they're not taking overtime because they're taking overtime today, and then at 7 o'clock the following evening, they're getting a phone call saying, you're coming to work tomorrow because we need you. That's the unfortunate reality of public safety, is we're always here. We're happy to do that, but you can only ask so much of a human before they say, you know what, I'm going to go somewhere else where I don't have to do this. And that's what we're running into now.
Do we have the option of going for the 4, 3 are under the SAFER program? If we don't get the SAFER program, at least get the one.
You can do that as part of the budget process, yes.
Because that makes sense, because, I mean, to all your points, losing people is even more expensive, both monetarily and safety-wise, so, you know, this seems, at least getting one seems very much in the town's interest, both fiscally and medically.
Well, that's kind of my point, yeah, and even, you know, as of now, if we don't do something about this now, we're essentially kicking the can down the road. I'm gonna be back here in a couple of months saying, well, we're still doing the same thing we were doing. I'm trying to put a Band-Aid on it essentially.
Right, and if we say we're going to at least get one, go forward, but we're going to at least get one, you can go back to your staff and say, we did what we could.
Right.
So I had a kind of, if I understood what Anthony was saying earlier, you're gonna apply for the grant sometime probably in October, and you hear sometime in March?
It comes out in the fall, and when we hear about it, we could be talking 2 years before we see the full value of the grant, and then we have to likely send members to the fire academy. By the time we hire them, do a process, all of that, it's, you know, I would say conservatively 18 to 24 months from the time we submit the grant, before we have fully trained firefighters who are actually able to do what they're supposed to do.
So what I was trying to get at is, if we thought we were gonna get some grant money sometime in mid-spring, maybe we split the baby on this? Instead of funding the position starting January 1st, we fund it starting April 1st, right? So that you can have someone that you'll know going forward. We have an idea whether we're going to have at least money for one for the grant. If we know we're gonna hire one anyway, let's not wait. You know, if we're gonna burn out and lose staff, if we can figure out a way to do something more along those lines, right? So, you know, we're supporting the department, but we're also like being fiscally smart on how, like, let's not get out in front of the grant any more than we have to and jeopardize getting someone else to pay for it, but let's not wait in case we don't get it. And because if we don't give you the money until we're gonna be even farther behind on the hiring process.
You did approve at the last meeting,
Yeah,
one firefighter.
Right.
That was the appropriation transfer from his overtime account
Right.
to fund that full-time position.
Right, so the question is, if we're likely to hire one, regardless if we get the grant next year, then why not say do it in April rather than July?
Creating a precedent of not going on a regular cycle, I guess.
That's, yeah,
Well, this position too, this position, from what I read in all the meeting minutes, was going to be voted on in the Springtown meeting, but all the notes I saw were wait for the chief to determine if there's an actual need or not. And that was for a fire prevention officer. So what we're looking at now is the one that was approved through the appropriation transfer. We'd go back to that model. I can't really affect the staffing shortages with one person, but I can affect some succession planning for the deputy. The deputy serves two positions. He's a fire prevention officer, and he's the deputy doing operations. So if I take one of those positions away, succession planning, that's important. That was in phase 2 of the plan that I sent you. We can reorganize that. That's okay. But just the same, we do an appropriation transfer for a budget that we overspent last year because of unforeseen circumstances. You know, it's a hard position for all of us to be in.
I agree with you too, by the way, of setting the bad precedent, but if we're gonna have to do the transfer to fund them anyway, what's the difference?
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so the position that we said go ahead and do the transfer, that was to kind of stop the bleeding.
Well, that was in tandem with this other position that we have. I mean, that was what the staffing plan that I submitted was pretty clear. We were gonna have 2 people working, 4 days on, 4 days off, 12 hours during those busiest periods of time. Figuring that the forced overtime during the day is a lot harder for people to deal with. It was to stop the bleeding, those 2 in tandem. If we only fill one, which we certainly can, we're just gonna change the focus, and we're gonna look more towards succession planning and building out the administration more so than the forced overtime.
I'm not sure I agree with that, but, so if we approved one, if we approved another one, say tonight, we said, okay, go for the second one, and then we get the four safer grant
Yep,
positions, we're essentially adding 6 Correct. 6 firefighters to
In the
your
last,
roles.
the last Safer grant, the first 2 years last year, the first 2 years were covered 100% under the grant, and the third year it was fully realized by the town. I don't know if that's what it'll be this year. It changes every time it comes around.
I think it was 175, 50, 25.
That's what it was in the past. The last grant cycle last year for Safer was 100, and then the town picked up the tab on the third year.
Okay.
So if we did that, we wouldn't pick up the full tab until FY '27.
So it gives us a shorter period of time, but it's actually a better financial model, but, okay, so whatever. You mentioned in your presentation about it's 4 years since paramedics, so I know you've done a ton of research and given us each a lot of data, and it's
Yep.
very much appreciated, because we can't make decisions without that data. With that data, have you been able to determine, is the paramedic program, frankly, is it a success? Is it self-sustaining? We made the move because we were told that it was going to take care of itself. In fact, it was going to generate revenue. So can
Right.
you address that at all for us?
I think Alicia would be better to address that
Okay.
as well. There's an offset, which I've not been given a clear definition of what meeting the offset means. The ambulance service does make money. It does contribute to the budget through receipts. We're actually looking to improve that with some collection activities that we're looking to do in the future. But Alicia, you can speak to.
Yeah.
Okay, so are you asking me to speak to ambulance revenues, chief?
Yes, please.
Okay, so we've lowered the amount that we were originally getting into the budget down to 525. We just made that last year. We got it
From
through,
6.
so we have enough. We also budgeted in a way so that when his ambulance comes to be replaced, it's coming out of the ambulance revolving with a portion coming out of our capital. So that way it's not 100% on the town. So we also have been chatting about write-offs as well, chief.
Yes.
We have some uncollectible debts and trying to figure out how to get those uncollectible debts or to write them off.
No, we want to try to figure out how to get the collectibles, and then which ones we're unable to collect, and then write off the
Correct.
rest of them. We've
Correct.
never done debt collection since the ambulance service was started. So as of now, there's $500,000 in uncollected revenue since 2018.
But I think Chuck was asking, like, what does the offset represent against the cost of running the ambulances, depreciation, buying an ambulance?
I mean, it was
Yeah.
frankly, the paramedic service was sold to us and to the town as self-sustaining. This will be something that will pay for itself, which is why we approved it and town
Sure.
meeting approved it, I believe. So it's, I'm just trying to understand.
Right. I think
Where
if
are-
the
where are
ambulance
we with that
revenue
with 4
goes
years?
into the general budget, it's hard to make a determination if it funds itself. If we use the ambulance revenue to fund positions, I think it's a little bit easier to determine whether or not it's, and what's your definition of funding itself?
If
You know,
I-
I guess that would be,
If it costs $1 million to run the paramedic program,
right.
all in, and we're billing 1.5, there's gonna be soft costs and there's gonna be other stuff in there, but
Right.
I can do that math.
Right.
You know, so there was, so we can go back and pull up old notes and look at past presentations.
Right.
But that's neither here nor there. Now we've got data. We were sold something which helped us to make a determination. So it was a leap of faith, and I just want to find out, where are we at with that? Are we getting a return on that leap?
If I
Right.
can I just,
Through the chair, I know that it was a higher amount that was coming into the town, and then it was lowered by the former finance director, and I also kept it lower because I didn't see the sustainability. And the town administrator did advise me that it was sold to the town, that it would pay for itself, but due to COVID, uncollectible debt, the revenues did go down and it was not sustainable.
so that's,
I would have to sit down and do all the math for it because the ambulance revenue had its own fund, its own special revenue fund. So I can actually sit down and look at how much revenue has been coming over the last few years and compare it to the cost for you.
so if I can add on that, Chuck. So the first year, was it 19 that we did that? Somewhere around there. Excuse me.
Voted
Receipts
18.
were strong. Receipts were strong, and they certainly were looking like that. The revenue that we were going to generate was going to offset the cost of the salaries. Anyways, the salaries. then it's really tough to get good data over the last few years because then COVID hit, right? And things were considerably down, and I believe that we discussed, and when I first returned, that we needed to supplement that because the revenue, the receipts were way down. The calls were way down during the pandemic. So, you know, we started out with good data, then we went into COVID where we really didn't get good data for, 20 months or so, and now we're starting to come back. It still had to reduce the receipts, like Alicia said, down from 600 that we originally said to 525. And then we have a large chunk of uncollectible receipts, which we've been talking with the chief, and the chief's looking at different options that at some point will come before the board for how we can try to recover some of those. But we really want to make sure that we do our due diligence as far as, one of those is a collection agency, and I've had some experience doing that. And, that can be troubling to some of the residents when they get those type of calls from a collection agency. So we're trying to do all the homework and then determine how can we get back some of that money. Obviously, we're not going to get a lot, they may bill out on a call, but their insurance company will only pay the Medicare rate, and it's going to be half of that. That other half needs to be written off because we're not going to really collect that. And, we talked about doing a policy that presented to the board, as well as options on how we can try to recover some of those funds.
So, if I may, I think this is a fascinating and excellent conversation, but we're a little far afield from the topic right now, and I'm worried that we're going to be here at 11 p.m. So I don't want to not discuss this, because actually I think that the discussion of the paramedic service is going to be very valuable, and I think we should have that with FinCom probably in the room, and definitely Alicia. But I want to get back to the specifics of this line item, which is, are we going to approve another position now, today, before the budget process for, that we're going through for next year?
I'm curious to get the input.
Yeah.
Yeah, and just through the chair, to the town council, Alicia, do we have any data on where we're trending, on overtime and things, based on what was budgeted, really how far in overage we're at, and what we're projecting?
And how much they're trending in overtime?
Yeah, and how much over budget we are, if that's kind of what's driving the new positions concern around forced overtime, how we're
Yep.
really tracking and what was planned.
I
Let
can
me
give you
pull
the
it up.
numbers from the last 3 years while we're waiting. FY '20, we spent total $140,000. FY '21, $238,000. FY '22, $427,000. And that's checks. That's check amounts. That's what people were actually paid. So
So if we're talking like
Talking payroll.
that's from the pay.
400,000 for 4 positions, just the increase in overtime would fund 2 positions at this point from last year.
Yeah, assuming that there was no
Right.
overtime, which we know isn't reality.
Well, of course, but
It's certainly a step in the right direction.
Keep in mind, any staff that you do add is entitled to vacations
I
and so
understand, no.
forth. So they're gonna be looking to take time off the same time that everybody else is taking off, which
Yes.
there's 2 high periods in time with overtime for public safety. It's the summer and it's the holidays. And that's what we're facing. We're facing the same thing that I've faced for 14 years doing this in another community. So certainly there's less staff, and I think that's what the chief is talking about. Even the numbers that he talked about, they're just right there, so the 100, 200 to 4, again, that's COVID related too, right? So the numbers were down and all that, so of course we're gonna see a decrease in those out years that COVID was around.
Yes, so I have 170,648.34 in fiscal 20, 225,060.76 in 21, 446, 233.39 in 22.
Is that out of Munis?
Yes,
Okay.
Okay,
The numbers from Munis were a
close.
little bit, yeah.
okay. Yes,
So if the board has already approved one position to be paid out of overtime, how much of a position can we fund this year and still reduce overtime more? I mean, there's a huge jump from last year,
Right.
or 2 years ago to this year, 200 to 400,000.
Mhm.
If you brought in 2 bodies, can we cover the full body plus 50% of the second, or 20% of the second?
Right. We wouldn't see those numbers realized until we had people in-house and had them trained, and so probably by July. So, and that's kind of the point. If we don't do something, then we're gonna be talking about this again. And maybe not, maybe the numbers could go down. That's a distinct possibility.
How much of that, realistically, if a new position, how much of that are you gonna cover with a full-time position? How much of that overtime is gonna go away? Like more
With
than
one-
40 hours, like more
With
than?
one position, I can't see much of it going away, just because I have to restructure how that position is used.
We also have to take into consideration that we do have a member of the fire service that is going to be returning to service.
Oh, yeah. Yep, and yep.
Which
and then-
will have a
Yep.
positive impact on the
It
amount of
will,
overtime.
yeah, and I have one member going out for, a long-term absence because he's having a child. I have another that's gonna probably be out on an IOD for surgery, and then I have 2 members going to the fire academy in February. So,
Yes.
Mr. Chair, just one thing to remember, the more people you have, the more time they take off, so the more hours you have to cover. This is a self-fulfilling prophecy. So it's not simple math. And I appreciate the chief advocating for what he feels he needs, but it's not a 1-for-1, because we're talking about, and I'm confused, easy to do at my age, but we're talking about 2 people now and a 4-person safer. So are we talking about 4 people at the end of the day, or are we talking 6 people at the end of the day? 6. So if you think of 6 people being here 2 years out, those 6 people are gonna have vacations and sick time and holiday time and all that, and you're gonna have to cover some of those shifts. So it's clearly not a 1-for-1 trade. I just didn't want people to be thinking that. On the short term, yeah, if you can cut overtime and pay for 1 or maybe 2, but in the long term, you're gonna be having a similar discussion in the future. And part of the reason your overtime's up is because you have more people, and you're covering those extra shifts on holidays or vacation times. So it's just the way the system works. Be careful.
Well,
But
Okay.
with these extra positions that you're talking about for next year, if some of these people are out, you're not covering those shifts because you're hiring these people to cover the shifts of the 4 that are already on duty. So
That's
it's really not as bad as what Fred just talked about.
I don't wanna say it's not as bad. What we have right now is no insulation. So if somebody's out, we have to fill it, because we have a service to provide. When we add people, we're adding insulation. So if somebody's out, we don't have to fill that shift. If 2 people are out, we only have to fill 1 and not 2. So the impact is much less. It's not 0 by any means. It's not a 1-for-1, you're absolutely correct. But there is the ability to just give us some insurance.
All right, well, I'm interested what the pleasure of the board is,
Yeah.
both boards.
If I may,
Yes.
I just haven't had a
Yeah,
chance
go,
to speak,
please.
so I appreciate it, sure.
You
So
said-
thank you, Chief, for coming before us and providing this information. I think what we're missing here is that a lot of this is related to call volume and the need to run 2 ambulances. Littleton is right on the 495 belt. I know there are certain days that your department's out on 495 4 times in one day. So I get it that there is, the more people they have, the more vacations and things like that you need to cover, but at the end of the day, also the need to run 2 ambulances, maybe sometimes 3 on certain days, depending what's going on. I know you've presented scenarios where you have somebody, up off a great road, having to transport a patient that requires 4 people to help transport them. Now you got an accident out on 495 that you need to respond to, and you have nobody back at the firehouse. So it's really about having sufficient staffing, I think overall. I know we approved 1 position. I hope that the board's going to continue to support that. I'm in favor of supporting a 2nd position And I'm really, and I love grants are great, but this uncertainty of, you know, relying on a grant to fund the additional 4 people that you need, that doesn't make me comfortable in the long run. Because what if we don't get that grant? Then what are we gonna do? And I just feel like your department provides an essential life-saving service to our community. As we all know, I don't need to spell that out to everybody, but I just think it's a little bit different, the way your department is run, that I think some people might not fully understand. So I just feel like whatever the chief feels that he needs to do now, to help resolve some issues within the department as far as staffing, we should take those steps. And if it's the favor of the board or the recommendation of our finance team to go for the grant application for the long run for the other 4 personnel, that's fine too. But I just think we really need to be more cognizant of what we're dealing with here, and really have a strong plan to support this department.
Finance Committee, do you want to chime in your final say on this item, this line item?
Yeah, I mean, I guess for me personally, and then I don't know if we have consensus or if the majority disagree, but I mean, I feel like there's a lot of data that we need to really understand this more and make a recommendation. I mean, without understanding shifts and the timing of overtime and stuff, I don't think we really have enough to make a recommendation on it. I mean, I guess I'm a little concerned just in that, you know, it seems like there's a little lack of clarity on the fire prevention officer. Like, you know, I know you find one position, that would be fire prevention if you only get one, but the overtime offset for another, so.
Yeah, well, the reason for that is that we're still gonna make good use of the position. They're both important. What we were trying to do with the 2 is reduce forced overtime and burnout from the employees, essentially gives them a break. 422 times in FY '22, they had to work forced overtime. You know, that's every other day, there's 2 people being forced in to work.
Okay.
Any other thoughts from?
Okay. Chuck?
I'm kind of going along with, my initial thought is that the town administrator and our finance director have made a recommendation. So I support the recommendation. I certainly, like you said, Chief, you're going to advocate for, and I think we all feel the same way, that we want to make sure that we are having these folks go home, you know, the firefighters and paramedics go home and not have to get called in, and it's, you know, quality of life, being home with their families, and that they keep getting pulled in, and it just you know, creates bad morale, and if they're working too much, they're getting tired, they're getting injured, that kind of thing. So that was part of the justification for us saying, yeah, go ahead, use that let's do that appropriation and make sure that we, like I said earlier, put the Band-Aid on it. I do feel as though with the recommendation of our full-time, our town administrator and our finance director, I support that, but with a caveat that with, you know, Mark's recommendation that we take a look at, or even Brian, some kind of a hybrid, somewhere in between, where we commit to going for the 4 SAFER grants with the caveat that one of those 4 we will find a way to pay for, and maybe that's in the regular cycle where we actually put it in the budget for May town meeting, and you know, make sure that we get that, whether we get the SAFER grant or not. I feel like right now, especially with you guys wanting more facts and data, that's where I would say.
I'm okay with that.
Okay.
So if I can just add, Chuck, so we have to be careful. So if we add the position as part of the budget process and say we're gonna add one, and we go for the SAFER grant, we now in return cannot say to the federal government, we want you to pay for that. That's called supplanting. It's against federal rules as far as doing that. So it has to be unfunded. So if we say that we're gonna fund it through the budget process, then you still have to go for 4 new firefighter positions.
Good thing we're not on camera.
Okay.
So we can refuse a SAFER grant.
You absolutely can refuse a SAFER grant.
So we could accept 3 positions and refuse the grant for one of the positions.
Probably. haven't done that one, but that's a
I-
good
I-
point.
I would,
As long as we
Brian and
don't
I will figure it
supplant.
out.
okay.
The thing is supplant. If we budget for something, we can't now say we need the grant funding
Right.
to do that. Federal government doesn't.
You're double dipping essentially, right?
I would
But we
like,
wouldn't have budget for it, but, I mean, we're saying if we didn't get we're only in a disposition to come May, we don't have the SAFER grant, and then we fund the position, and then they come back and say, in July, they say, oh, yeah, you got the grant.
Right, but to Chuck's point, yeah, we can just cut that down to 3 and say we're willing to accept 3 because we funded 1.
okay. I would like
Or
you,
2, or whatever it might be.
would like you to send to the finance committee, what's the word? The data that you sent us on on runs and call volume, because there is some confusion about what effectively this position is gonna cover, or the 2 positions or whatever, and I think that, I understand that it's going to reduce overtime out of proportion with the money we spend on salary, but maybe I'm wrong. And I think that is what the conversation needs to be. Like, is it gonna be cost effective to do these hires? I think it is, but I'm comfortable with going forward with 1 position, through, and then, hopefully through SAFER, but possibly not, but budgeted anyway. Okay,
And I just want to point out, I fully support the town administrator and the finance director in their recommendations. I just wanted to make sure everybody's clear on our intentions and why
Appreciate
we
that.
need it.
No, that's
and-
why you're
I
here,
understand.
yeah. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
And we certainly support the chief. It's not,
No doubt.
you know, these are difficult decisions. And
Absolutely.
really, in a perfect world, we'd be saying yes to all these requests. Because you know what? Every single department that asks for something, they truly need it plus. It's just the financial situation that we're in. You know, we went to the taxpayers last year when IBM moved out, and there was a hit of $900,000 in their tax bill. Just went up, just based on that, $150 per household. We don't have, well, the 550 King Street Development had their master plan approved. There's no permitting that's done. We haven't seen anything before the planning board, so I certainly don't want to spend money that we haven't received yet, and we have to make up some of the money that we lost for the taxpayers before increasing. The SAFER grant, if it went back to that old system, kind of works out pretty well, right? Because then, with King Street being a 5 to 10 year, probably more like a 10-year project before that gets built out, that helps us get, you know, that cost burden on in year 5,
absorb
which
it
would be
easier.
great, right? Because then we're gonna see some of the fruits of the labor of all the work that this board did and the planning board did and all the other various planning committees with all the items that Myron mentioned earlier.
Okay. Thank you.
That's all I have. Sorry it took so long.
No, it's fine.
No, it's all good. It's
We
good
had-
discussion.
It's important.
Good discussion.
All right, thank you.
Okay,
Thanks, Bob.
all right, on to the next one.
Continuing on, we've seen an increase in electricity and natural gas, so that's something that we feel certainly is not going down. So we're recommending that be funded. Facilities director, now, this is something that's been kicked around since when I was here an assistant back in
Early
2017. Yeah, really. So, and it's something where we've seen, even since when I started, we've added the library, we've added a new firehouse. You know, we've seen work that needed to be done on the police station. We're gonna be adding a senior center. And you know what? We have to kind of shift our focus, and instead of being reactive to proactive, and making sure that these assets that the town spends $15 million on, like the building that we're in here, is kept up to the standards, and all the maintenance that needs to be done to this building is done on a timely basis. That's why we're recommending that this position be funded. The next position.
Sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Mueller?
Yeah, sorry, just one quick question. I don't disagree with the value of it at all. We've been talking about it forever. I guess the only question, when we talked about this in the spring, we were gonna, I think, talk to the school department about potential for them jointly funding it, or did that conversation ever?
I know that it went to a previous town meeting that the school department is in favor of a joint facilities project. Now, funding it, those are certainly conversations that we can have during the budget process.
We'll
I
run
think
that hill.
When Chuck's looking for that other 35,000, we can add another, 55,000 for this position too. You know, money's all coming from one pot, right? So it's just how we spend it, and we want to spend it really the most prudent way for the community.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Next is land use. The request was for the assistant planner the cost this year would have been 55, next year would have been 120,000. This is a tough one, because certainly, we're not saying that the position is not needed, we just have to live within our means. And right now, we are recommending not to fund this, although Myron has a tremendous amount on her plate, and we all recognize that. We haven't seen any permits yet for 550 King Street or the Northern Bank development. So there's certainly gonna be a lot of work, and we also have open space plans that have to be worked on, and it's something that we're gonna have to do. What we've done in the past is kind of just, we're recommending just kind of work together and put this part of the budget process for FY '24.
Yeah, we've talked about sustainability, we've talked about economic development, and, you know, tied into the whole planner, so.
So
Mr. Mullen, do you want to, go ahead, Mark, or?
I'm a little worried about pushing this one off. We just heard Marin say what had to happen for the station area. In the past week, I looked at our open space plan that Anthony just referred to that expires in November of 2022, that if we don't have updated, we're no longer eligible for a lot of grants that helped fund open space and things in the past that no one has started work on. I was at the planning board meeting last week. Northern Bank is planning on coming in, I don't know if it's the next September meeting or October, so that is going to be starting. So I am a little worried about pushing this off, just because I think there are things that are coming. And if you push it off long enough, it's just going to make that much more work for Marin when she's trying to train someone and do all of these other things that have time commitments or certain deadlines to them.
And if I could just add one thing before Ed speaks to Mark's point. Every one of the projects that you mentioned, 550 King Street, Northern Bank, is all contingent upon sewer. You know, last year we were sitting here, I think our plan was that the RFP was gonna be issued sometime in September. We're in September, we're not gonna be issuing that RFP. You know, we realized today from in speaking with the sewer division that it's probably more like November that we're gonna go out, and every one of these projects are contingent on that. You know what, we have a lot of variables that's unknown. We have a borrowing authorization for $25 million with increasing costs that is jeopardizing, are we gonna have enough funds? Because we can't award a contract unless we have a funding source. So, and without the sewer, quite honestly, there's no other projects in town. So there's still a lot to do with that, and that's why we thought holding it off. All the points you made are absolutely dead on, right? That it's all stuff that needs to be done, which we've handled over the past several years and been able to persevere and still produce all the reports and all the studies and everything that we needed to do, which put Littleton in a good position on all the grants that we've successfully gotten over the number of years.
Mr. Mullen?
Thank you. So, Select Board and Mr. Chair, I appreciate the opportunity. We had a great meeting with Anthony, Ryan, and Alicia last week when we had this discussion, and they brought us up on the fiscal needs of the town. And we, in that conversation, decided to withdraw the request at this time, but prepare for FY '24. In that, I know Mark and I had a discussion, and along with Chuck, about the 2-for-3 model we were talking about with sustainability and facilities. My ask tonight would only be that, you know, you are going to support the facilities position, that for reasons of retention, that we can actually transition Marin into some sustainability role to work with the new facilities director. Anthony's office and Ryan offered to do some of the heavy lifting when it comes to the projects we just talked about, the grant request. I'm interested in doing some of the hazard mitigation work, so I'd like to take that portion on to assist Marin, but I'd love for us to look at how we can get Marin on the sustainability side of the town planner role in doing all this, and still hold off on the request and put it in FY '24, so we can be more prepared and see where we are with the permitting. You can only push rope for so long, so you know, we know that, but we're there. So that's all I wanted to say, is that we wanted to try to move that in that direction. And as the director, I was hoping to do the hazard mitigation and some economic development role. So,
Thank you.
all right, thank you.
I mean, I'm happy to support you. I've been pushing for the town planner role for a while. I do think that this town needs more oversight over the development. If you're comfortable waiting another year, then I'm gonna follow your lead. I I'm not going to die on this hill, but thank you.
Yeah, well,
Appreciate it.
we're trying to do our part as
Okay.
the town needs.
And I think Mara knows how I feel about her.
Yeah,
Okay,
thank you.
It's not another year, too. It's only months away.
that's true.
Yeah.
Okay,
Oh,
should we
sorry.
keep going?
I didn't know if there was any else out there. Okay. The last request is the library asks for some additional hours, and this is to bring up the assistant library director from 35 to full-time. 35, is that 30? 30. 30, thank you. And one of the reasons why we're recommending this is because it's our understanding that Helen will be retiring and Sam's gonna need to go out and hire an assistant library director. And while Helen enjoyed the 30 hours and it worked for her, that next person, to ask them to come in for an assistant director position is just, it's gonna be a challenge for Sam to fill that. So we recommend, for the sake of, what's the word I'm looking for?
Acquiring talent.
Yeah, retaining, and retaining the talent that's with us, we're recommending this
Yeah.
to be funded.
Yeah, I don't want to extend your meeting, but Katrina Wilcox-Hagberg, library trustee, Helen not only liked 30 hours and she wanted to keep it there, but she did unpaid hours too. She actually has 2 roles. So she does acquisitions of all the new materials, ordering it, keeping on top of that, as well as the assistant director position. And a lot of libraries have that as a dual position, but they have it for 40 hours. So hiring the right person for this who wants to stay is, I think, a really important move for the longevity of the library.
Okay, thank you. Great. All right.
You know, the capital, this can be really quick. The police department, lost my page. The police department has requested additional fundings for the radio project. That, through some great work by the chief, Alicia's help, was reduced as asked from $200,000 to $166,794. We are recommending that this be funded through the Capital Stabilization Fund. The next item is the DPW requested $53,848 for some thermostat zoning for 23 heaters, totaling $21,000, as well as LED lighting upgrades. We've spoken to Steve Yonley. What we'd like to do is, we've been pretty successful with our Green Communities grant, so we'd like to go for those heat pumps as part of the grant. We're putting together an application. Hopefully, we can be awarded the maximum amount of $100,000. It would include this, some more EV charging stations in town, some additional work on schools. So we fully intend to try to get that portion. And then the LED project we'd recommend putting that through the budget cycle. Now, certainly, I think it's been said to me, you know, we're approving a budget request to increase utilities, why not do the LED lighting? I'm just not sure what the rate of return is on doing the LED lighting. I don't have that data, so if it's, you know, the return is, you know, over 10 years, I don't know. I just don't have enough to know right now what the impact will be on our utility costs.
So I think when this was originally presented, it said the LED had a 5-year return and the heaters had a 7.
That's correct.
Is that correct, Alicia? Or do you know that? I'm wondering, I understand pushing off the heaters if we're going for a grant. I don't understand asking for more money for electricity when we have a way with spending money to reduce our electricity budget. I mean, yes, we're outlaying more than we're going to spend, but we're gonna gain it back over a few years, so.
We do that. We could also add town hall to the mix and save a lot more money with that too, with doing LEDs. So it's something where I think that we thought it just warranted a little bit further digging in as far as the LED to see what else maybe that we may propose.
I fully support taking the town hall LED as well, but if we already know what the number is for DPW, then why not go in and then come back and ask for town hall later? I mean, we know our electric bills keep going up, and we have a way of lowering them, so yes, it's gonna cost us money, but it will save us money in a few years, so it seems like the smart thing to do.
I think the reason we went this way, through the chair, is because, like Anthony said, we don't have a rate of return, and in addition, due to the economic pressures that are coming right now, we really had to prioritize what was important. We couldn't really control those costs on the utilities. They're gonna go up, we have new buildings. Rate increases happened as well, and I've asked LELWG to keep me informed of any rate increases so I can account for them. But as of right now, I don't think it's prudent for us to invest in the LED lights right now until we've actually done an evaluation, really look at where we can save and what we can save for the town.
Thanks, Alicia. We did want to explore a little bit more with Nick at LELWD on what other grant opportunities might be available. You know, National Grid, for those communities that don't have municipal electric, offer these types of incentives. And we're not sure what, if anything, LELWD could do or what's available. So it just allows us a little bit more time to do some due diligence. To your point, Mark, you're making sense. We just drew the line somewhere.
I think Connor Reardon is a great resource at LELD, there's no W in there, right?
LELD.
Yeah, so, and he does a similar thing that National Grid or, anybody with Mass Save, and he'll do an analysis and he'll come out. And we have had a lot of success, I think you remember from the school committee days, where we've changed parking lot lights over to LED and that kind of stuff, and the return was, it was pretty quick. And it's short money up front with a pretty quick return. But I think if we can table this for now, take your recommendation, and engage with Connor or Nick and say, hey, this is what was proposed at DPW. Can you take a look? You can also come take a look at Town Hall and any other buildings or offices that we want to take a look at and see if there's an opportunity. I know that there are a number of private businesses in town that have taken advantage of it, and they've put in new thermostats and they've put in new LED tubes and that kind of thing. So the Green Communities grant, we have been extremely successful at it. We're year after year, and most of the time it's at the schools, just because they use a lot of electricity, and that we have to actually have the energy czar that we save so much money on energy that it's worth paying this consultant to help us with that. So might be something we would take a look at as well. Maybe we do some horse trading with the school committee when we're on the hill. And
it's getting to be a mountain, Chuck.
And see if we can maybe share that resource to do some analysis of our buildings as well.
I would hope that the facilities manager can do some of that too.
Yeah, right.
Yes.
It's unfortunate because the Green Communities does still allow for LED lighting at schools, but not at municipal buildings. And they did it at one point in time, but they stopped doing that. Why, I'm not quite sure, but that's where the efforts are going to now, is to the schools for
Maybe we
LED.
should take all the lights out of the schools.
I like it.
Cindy, do you have any comments on this one?
I don't.
Or Finance Committee? Okay. Last one.
Last one, the fire chief's vehicle, I think it was said last year during the budget cycle that this was something that the boards were looking to approve, but said, we're in the midst of hiring a chief. Why don't we just wait and get the chief's opinion? The chief's here. Certainly that vehicle is 6, 7 years old, like around there?
2014.
Thank you. So what we did talk to the chief about trading his in for a hybrid. If we do that with the hybrid, just like we're going with the police vehicles, then we can also apply $7,000 to the cost from a Green Communities grant, as long as we trade in a gas guzzler, because what Green Community does is they monitor our fleet. And what they never want to see is us going the opposite direction and saying, well, you're adding a hybrid, but you're not really getting rid of a gas guzzler, so we're not going to fund that. We talked to the chief, and we are gonna turn over a vehicle and replacement, so which we believe will allow us to be put that towards $7,000 for the funding of this vehicle towards the grant.
So you got a little cute with your language there. So we're going to turn over a vehicle.
A vehicle.
So we may repurpose his vehicle
I think
and turn
that's,
over a vehicle.
the chief was considering the option, and that was one of the things that he was working towards. I don't know if he's come up with a decision, but Plan B was certainly to get rid of a vehicle. Which one? I think the chief was leaning towards the
There's a 2008 Toyota Tundra.
Tundra.
The deputies.
All served somewhere else.
Car two.
Flintstones feet through the floorboards, is that what you're saying? Okay.
So I don't want to take up 20 minutes again. All right.
All right, if we insist.
But you're gonna anyway.
I'm sorry. No, I won't. It came up, and I want to be clear about it. So part of what the restructuring of the fleet is, right now, when we go out on a medical call, we take the big fire engines, which chew up a whole lot of resources and fuel, wear and tear maintenance on big pieces of apparatus that cost a lot of money to fix. My vehicle is going to be repurposed to the floor for one person to go out with the ambulance, keep the bigger vehicles off the road more often. We'll train with them, but overall, it's a big cost savings. It's in line with the green communities, and it's lends more towards the future of where we're heading for the operation.
Good.
Thank you.
Not 20 minutes.
Thanks, Chief.
Final comments from FinCom, or you can close your meeting if you're ready.
Yeah, I think we're good.
Okay.
Move to close.
Yeah. Second?
Move to close.
Yeah. Motion to close? Sure. All in favor? All right. Aye.
So formal. Thank you very much.
Can we close?
We can. Actually, you can just go if you'd like, and we'll just continue. All right, thank you. Joint meeting with Park and Rec. Hello.
Thank you, FinCom.
Welcome. Thank you for being patient.
Ryan, you want to tee this up? Ryan will tee this
Who's
up.
going to present?
Brian will tee this up. and-
Okay.
Okay. I'd like to,
One thing, there's a car out in the parking lot, a Honda Accord, 2DB 952 with its lights on.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Try the veal.
I don't know if the Parks and Rec Commission wanted to, I don't know if you're already in session, or
We have adjourned.
you've adjourned. Do you want to come back into session, or?
We have to, right?
Yeah.
So, motion to come back to session, to open up our meeting.
You can just do that, Kevin.
All right. Do it?
Yeah, let's do it.
You can just do it. Okay.
All right.
Bring it on.
So I wanted to introduce to everybody, this is Mr. William Murray from Places Associates. I've had the good fortune to work with Bill on a number of projects in other communities that I work for. So just to remind the board, in your meeting in August, one of your meetings in August, you narrowed down the potential sites to relocate the tennis courts to 3 separate locations. And so the charge given to Places and to Bill specifically was to look at those sites. We included that memo from Bill in your packet. And with that, I will turn it over to Bill to talk about that and for Places to provide their recommendation to you this evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
So, as he said, William Murray from Places Associates. We're planners, landscape architects, civil engineers, and surveyors, and we've been operating here in Littleton for the last 11 years. I'm a registered landscape architect. We have been doing quite a few of these. The ARA funds seem to be popping up an awful lot of parks. So we've had a lot of frequent experience doing some of these. The charge that we were asked to do was take a look at 3 different properties, which you know, primarily to make sure that we could fit 2 replacement tennis courts. In addition, we were asked to see if a pickleball court could be fit on there, and to see if the sites could support other uses such as a dog park, a fitness court, bathroom facilities, athletic fields, playground structures, and parking. The minimum criteria that we were assigned were the 2 tennis courts, a pickleball court, and obviously the parking.
4 pickleball courts.
4, yeah.
A
Yes.
pickleball cluster, if you will.
A pickleball takes up the space of 1 tennis court. You get 4 in the space of 1 tennis court. So we did a multi-page report, and I know that you're running behind, so I can probably abbreviate my responses.
We would appreciate it very much.
Okay. We looked at all the local regulations as well as state regulation. Looked at zoning and non-zoning wetlands, sewer, Title V, and all of those kind of things. The common theme in one of ours is that your zoning is ambiguous as to whether a park is permitted by right in any of the residential districts. So all of the properties that you chose are residentially zoned. So a determination should probably be obtained from the building inspector to say that a park is probably allowed in all districts.
It's allowed.
There you go.
And there we go.
Thank you.
That was
Determination has been gotten.
could not get easier than that. All right.
That was easier than I thought.
BYO Commissioner.
So up on the screen is the second Russell Street, we call it the DeCarlo site, as it was previously known. We took a very close look at this. I've walked all of the sites myself. I delineate wetlands as well. This has quite a bit of wetlands on the northerly border where it butts the residential subdivision, and then again to the northwest at the end of the cul-de-sac there's a pond and other big wetlands. It has a very steep driveway that's partially paved coming off of Russell Street. So the driveway location is actually a safe location. You can see in both directions over 495 and down the street, but it is overly steep for park. It does not give you reasonable access. When we looked at all of the sites, we looked at the soils using available information. All of our information other than our site walks is from online sources and the town's GIS. So what we've done is we've given you an overview of each one of these. And the short story on Russell Street is it's got undulating terrain. The noise from 495 is massive and variable, so that even when if you were to play tennis there, it would be very, very distracting, and it would be very, very hard to get rid of that noise. Getting into that site with the wetlands, and it is in the aquifer district, means that you're going to have a pretty big permitting burden, and it's going to be an expensive site to develop just because it's wooded, and we're going to have to fix the roadway coming in. It can fit all of the program items that you want, and the sewer district is just down the street, so it would be possible if we had a sanitary facility potentially to tie into a sewer manhole by pumping or something along that. You've got quite a bit of wildlife out there, and you do a butt conservation land, so it connects to the conservation trail, so that's a very good thing. But overall, we found that would probably be the most expensive site for you to develop of the three that you chose. The second site that we looked at was Cooper Farm, which is a parcel along Great Road and Cooper Farm Lane up on the screen. We like this site quite a bit. Unlike the DeCarlo site, as I referred to it, you have good visibility into the site. DeCarlo site, the whole site is down off the road about 30 feet in elevation. So it's very, very remote. So patrolling it for the police department would involve going into the park, turning around, doing those kind of things. Cooper Farm has great visibility from Great Road. It's a big open meadow, so you would not have extensive clearing preparation costs. You can fit all of your program on this site. The soils are kind of difficult, but it too, 1,400 feet down the road is the sewer district, and since it's up high, it might be able to connect to the sewer. If you really wanted facilities out there, we could probably get a sanitary sewer system. The utilities are there. It's great visibility. The grade is moderate, so that there would not be extensive site work that would be required. So we like this site quite a bit from all perspectives. You could mobilize onto that site pretty easily. You're not in the Aquifer Protection District. You don't have wetlands. The only permitting burden that you would have is a mass highway curb cut because Great Road connecting to that. So then the final site was the baseball field at the Russell Street Elementary School. And when we looked at this, we looked at the fact that if we wanted to put in the tennis courts and the 4 pickleball courts, that we would probably recommend relocating the ball field to make it all fit. Because of the geometry of what the ball field takes up, the outfield of the ball field takes up all the usable space. And we don't really like this site because that's going to be an expensive alteration. I presume that there's irrigation out there, although I don't know. And I see that, no, okay. I see that it's used for soccer and multi-other sports. So moving the baseball field would have to move off to the west towards the school to create room on the easterly side for tennis courts and pickleball and some of the other things. That whole easterly side, northerly and easterly side, is all wetlands. So we've got wetlands issues. This too has the Watershed Protection District overlay. So there are other issues related to putting public facilities adjacent to elementary schools. Some people are not allowed to come within X amount of feet of elementary schools, and you'd be building something that some people who aren't allowed to do that can't get to, or would be encouraged maybe to go there, and we don't want to encourage that kind of thing. The fact of the operations of the school would conflict potentially with people wanting to use pickleball and tennis if they wanted to be in there during the arrival and the discharge of the students. So we thought from the perspective of relocating the baseball field would be difficult and expensive, the potential conflicts with the schools, and again, the permitting burden that you'd have for that site. This is actually the site that we could fit the least on. We couldn't fit a playground conveniently or easily fit those kind of things on, because the baseball just takes up so much. It's 350 feet for the outfield. So our conclusion is that the hang on, got to get to that page. The Cooper Farm site is really the better site. It gives you expansion capabilities. You can fit all of your program on there. It's partially wooded. It's partially meadow. So you've got the ability to put many different program items on that site, and you can probably proceed on that site pretty easily from a permitting perspective. That's my short story.
So on the Cooper site, how much space, with the tennis courts and the pickleball courts, how much space is left over after you put those on?
They probably take about a quarter of the site.
Okay. So plenty of space for
So they
dog
take-
parks or anything else that we might want
Yeah,
to put on there.
they take a little bit less than half of the field.
Okay, thank you. Rest of the board, questions, comments?
So half of the field as it's open space right now?
As is open space, yeah.
Because there's that natural barrier there, so none of that would have to be impacted.
Not for pickleball and tennis, no, and parking.
And
So
parking?
the basic
Okay.
components can all fit in the field.
Okay.
And there's even room, I mean, as I said, it's a little bit less than half. So, yeah, you'll have field left over and all the woods between the lane, Cooper's Farm Lane. Of course, they have the elevated septic system, gives you a backdrop to the existing Cooper's Farm subdivision itself. And there are two access, there's a access off of Cooper's Farm, and there's a curb cut into the stone wall.
Okay, thank you.
Great. Thanks.
Any other comments?
I think you covered my questions.
Do you have anything to add, Park and Rec, or commissioners?
Through the chair, I guess. You mentioned that the Russell Street site would be more expensive to develop. Can you quantify that at all in terms of relative to the overall project cost? Is it
So let me just give a ballpark analysis. I think the DeCarlo site is the one?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that would probably be 3 to 4 times the cost compared to Cooper's. And it will take you months more in permitting and design and all those kind of things.
Yes, just to add to this too, the charge that I've been given through Anthony is that we've got 2 tennis courts here on site, here on the Town Hall campus. We know that with the construction of the senior center, we're going to be losing that. So really, the focus of this is to get the 2 tennis courts up, plus the 4 pickleball courts as quickly as possible and as cost efficiently as possible. So that's really the focus for that, and such that if we are talking about anything else that relates to extending the timeline or the budget, becomes a bit more of a challenge.
So if the Park and Rec commissioners agree that the Cooper Farm is the way to go, what are the next steps?
I think what we'd be looking for is just a motion from both boards to just support moving forward with the Cooper Farm, so we can continue on with this study and come back and have a cost for town meeting, special town meeting. Design cost, right.
Yeah. And actually, what we'd be looking for would be 2 things: would be design and construction. And part of that would also, because we're on a tight time schedule, but also be coming to the Community Preservation Committee to be putting our requests before them. So we're trying to time that in a way so that we can turn this around. Once we define what the site is, then we're going to determine what we can fit within that box and then talk about things like add alternates for that, for things like the, the dog park.
Your
or
dog
potentially-
bathrooms, those would be alt ads, what we know we have to replace is, like Ryan said, the tennis courts and the pickleball. But while we're mobilizing at a field, it certainly makes a lot of sense to look at these other options that could be available for a fraction of the cost if we would start new at another place. So what we would do is we would planning on bidding those out as alt ads, and depending on what the cost of the entire project is, then we could see if it fits the schedule, the funding schedule.
And if I may, I've done this in other communities where you know exactly what you need and you know what you want. So our design becomes a master plan. You implement that what you need, and the design stays around, and the Recreation Committee can then use it as a master plan.
Great. All right, Recreation Committee, are you ready to recommend?
Sure.
Okay.
Support the recommendation of Cooper property.
So, how should we craft a motion? Do we need to include all of the specific funding issues or design stuff that Ryan just
I
mentioned?
think right now it's, move that the select board vote to authorize town administrator, assistant town administrator to proceed forward with the Cooper Farm site as the preferred site.
As recommended by the Park and Rec Commission.
Yes.
So moved.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All right, all those in favor? Please say aye.
Can you just take, Kevin, I love you, but can you just have your board take a vote on that?
Sure, absolutely.
I know you mean a lot,
What
Kevin.
Chuck said.
I know that.
What Chuck said. So moved.
What did Chuck say? Whatever Chuck said, a recommendation to support the Cooper Farm, proceeding with the Cooper Farm site.
Yes.
All right, so the Parks and Rec Commission.
You need to.
Motion,
Do we have to do a
second.
roll call?
No, just have one person make the motion, somebody second.
All right, so
I will make that motion that we
Aaron makes
move forward with the Cooper Farm.
Scott, you second that?
second it.
Thank you.
All right, all in favor? Aye.
Woohoo! Thank you.
Great, this is great.
If I may, just for the record,
Yes.
use table 17326 allows municipal recreation in all areas, so it's on the record.
Okay.
Thank you.
A man with a phone.
Very good.
So,
All right.
Thank you.
before we completely move from this, I had two questions. One was on the dog park. Do we want to do that now, or you mentioned going for grants before, so I don't know if we're putting that as an ad alternate, or is that something we want to develop later?
That's an ad alternate.
Yeah, it's an ad alternate.
And
you're
it's
right.
not going to screw up the grants if you're doing it early versus later?
It's a private grant. That would be Stanton Association. Is that-
There's
Okay.
two different ones, but Stanton is the one that we would most definitely want to
Okay.
try to obtain, but, yeah, I think.
And the other thing is, I know we said we want to replace the 2 tennis courts and 4 pickleball, but is
And
that?
parking.
And the
And
parking,
parking,
but is that, that's the minimum we want, right? We haven't decided if we wanted 2 tennis courts or 4, so how are we making that determination and where and when?
I think when we get back with some cost estimates, then we can have another conversation
Okay.
regarding that.
Right, I just wanted to make sure that we're still under the discussion, not that this is exactly what we're going for, because.
Yeah, we talked about 4 tennis courts. It's a matter of everything is with the dollar amount.
And
So-
just keep in mind, again, this is going to go back to the Community Preservation Committee, so this has to be, if it's 2 courts or 3 courts, whatever it might be, it has to get through them, because that's going to be our funding source.
Yeah.
So the idea is to get this for the special town meeting come November 1st.
I understand that, I'm just wanting to make sure that we're not saying this is exactly.
narrow.
We're too narrow, right?
So we are going to be meeting this upcoming week with some of the stakeholders in the town hall and discussing some of those, I guess, design elements now that we have selected the site.
Yeah, okay, and make sure that the parking can accommodate a bus.
A bus?
The
Well, for
school bus.
School bus,
Yeah.
yeah.
Great.
So,
Thank you all
okay,
very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Kevin, whatever you want now, Kevin. It's good now.
We are on to public input. Anyone who would like to speak, please step up to the podium and they may speak if you will announce your name. I would please urge you to be as brief as possible, given that we are desperately interested in what you have to say, but we're also way over time, so.
I'm Jennifer Manicum. I live at 11 Cricket Lane. And a neighbor had asked me to come tonight because she couldn't attend. you may be aware that there was a snow removal issue on Cricket Lane because of an inability for snow vehicles to get down the road because of a resident's, cars and parking and whatnot. So that issue has gone to mediation, and the mediators have asked that I ask the select board the timing on the issue on approving snow approval for this year. They're looking for dates so that they can make that part of their process. So when we need to have someone come out and look at the road, and when a decision would be made, whether the snow removal would be approved.
Well, it's funny because I just filled out my petition actually today in order to get our plowing approved. Steve would be the right one to answer this, but I know
Yes.
that once the petitions are submitted, then the highway department comes out to inspect the road.
Right.
The date of the submission, I'm going to say is,
ASAP.
Yeah,
I mean, early October at the very latest.
Are we looking for the road to be accepted as a public road or just to?
No, just to
plowed?
be
No.
plowed.
Part of the
Just to
mediation,
be-
Jen?
Just to be plowed.
To my understanding, it is in mediation right now.
Okay.
But I think what they're looking for is also as to put an outside time on making the mediation efficient when that decision is made.
If you'll
So,
contact Steve Yonley
Steve
directly,
Yonley.
I'm sure he can tell you exactly when he needs that back.
I'll send you his contact.
okay, all right.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Any other public input? Hello?
I won't take much of your time either. My name's Jackie Reese. I live at 3 Rita Lane. And I don't know if all of you already saw this article over the weekend. May have heard a little chatter online about it. The headline was, "Despite ban, a gun emporium is thriving." There's a lot that concerned me about it, but I'm going to read just a couple sentences that were particularly troubling. The Globe identified 20 dealers at the mill who displayed or advertised for sale core parts of assault weapons. Dealers also told the Globe that it's common for dealers to disassemble a banned gun for a customer, then sell the customer some of the parts, and enlist a second dealer to sell the remaining parts. I found this really troubling. I've already written to our state legislators, and I hope you will reach out to them to do the same thing. This isn't a loophole that we want anywhere in the state. I certainly don't want it within walking distance of my home, and I know lots of other people are concerned about it too.
Thank you. So at the beginning of this meeting, I did make a quick announcement. We are very aware of it, and everybody is involved in dealing with this situation, discussing our options.
Thank you.
Everyone that you mentioned and more people.
Great,
Thank
and
you.
I apologize for
No,
missing
that's
the
absolutely
beginning.
fine. No, it's we all got a lot of requests from citizens about it, so we appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other public input? All right. Well, member update, Mark, you want to go first?
My only thing was, I mentioned earlier the open space plan, we need to get something going on that soon, and I don't know how the process has worked for that. There was a committee that did it before, so I expect that committee to need to be resurrected, so.
We should put, yeah, I don't know what the process is either. So I guess the open space,
The recreation
We'll
committee.
do some research on it, and it'll be on the agenda for the next meeting as for an update.
thank you. Chuck?
I'm all set, thank you.
Cindy?
Sure, thank you, Mr. Chair. So just two things. I've been working with our Veteran Service Officer, John Borowski, to plan a rededication ceremony for the World War I monument located on Shattuck Street and King Street. This board, is in partnership with our state delegation and Mr. Borowski, obtained some funding, and we redid that monument, and we would like to do a rededication ceremony. So we're planning that for Veterans Day, November 11th of this year at 11. So there'll be more information about that as plans are finalized. And the other thing is I did meet with, one of my goals was the updating and hardscape of the Liberty Square on the Boxborough line. So I did meet with Veteran Service Officer John Borowski, Ed Williams, and Russ Mullen, who's a resident here in Littleton, who's very interested. He is quite the historian. He could actually probably give Poglavy a run for his money. It was really a pleasure meeting with them. So they're coming up with some design ideas that will come before the board in the future, and we'll see how we can move forward with that project as well.
Thank you.
That's it.
I have a couple items. One is Littleton lost a lovely resident a couple weeks ago, Ed Howard, who many of you may know was the proprietor of Ed's Weenies, passed away. I never met him, but I have to say that almost every week since I've been on the board, we've said his name as he has been donating money to EHS and before that to the Littleton schools. I went back and looked last year, his total donations that we kept track of in the meeting minutes was $4,956. I think he was one of the most generous people in Littleton. There is a memorial for him on Saturday in Concord at the Trinity Episcopal Church, if anyone's interested in attending. But I wanted to bring up to this board the idea of discussing what a suitable memorial to him would be. I think that I'm not sure whether naming something in the senior center or finding some other venue to just memorialize him, because I do think he was a generous man for his whole life, and he gave a lot to Littleton, and we should remember that. So perhaps we can have a discussion about that at our next meeting. I also am working on Anthony's review. I did a draft of goals. I'm going to hand them out now, and we can discuss them at the next meeting. So these are the performance objectives, which was the last thing, what we didn't do in the last review, as well as a statement to go along with the review that we did read and submit because it was incomplete, in my opinion, because it didn't have performance objectives. So what I'd like to do is please review this and let's discuss it and formalize it for the next meeting. I also have, Anthony supplied me with a evaluation form for their town manager from was it from? Middleton, which I think may be captured a little bit better, the performance measurements, and I'm going to send that around to see if we want to adopt that moving forward. And then the last thing is, we did our goals, and we actually had some good and very concrete goals that we assembled as a board. I would really like to review those at the next meeting, time permitting, so that we don't forget about them and we maintain forward progress on them. So at the next meeting, I'm going to bring that spreadsheet back up, and we can go over our goals and see how we're doing on them.
Great.
Okay, that's all I got. All right, appointments.
Hi, Mr. Chair. The first appointment we have is for the Committee for Exploration of Tax Relief for Seniors. We've received one applicant, Mr. Peter Barbella of 62 Goldsmith Street, for consideration for appointment. This appointment would be for a term expiring June 30th, 2025.
All right, does the board have any comments on this appointment? If not, we can go right to the motion.
Move the select board vote to appoint Peter Barbella of 62 Goldsmith as a citizen-at-large member to the Committee for the Exploration of Real Estate Tax Relief for Seniors for a term expiring June 30th, 2025.
Second.
Motion made by Chuck, seconded by Mark. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
The motion carries. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, the next one is the Sustainability Committee. We received one application from Rob Houston, 55 Jennifer Street here in Littleton, for a 3-year term expiring June 30th, 2025.
There's no comments from the board. We'll entertain a motion.
Move the select board vote to appoint Rob Houston, 55 Jennifer Street, as a member of the Sustainability Committee with a 3-year term expiring June 30th, 2025.
Second.
Motion made by Chuck, seconded by Cindy.
Thank you.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
The motion carries 4-0. Thank you, Mr. Administrator.
The next appointment would be for the Taxation Aid Committee, which is the tax relief for elders and disabled, also known as TRED. You hear a lot of donations being into the TRED fund. We've received one application from Susan Melander of 160 Harvard Road in Littleton for consideration for an appointment for a term expiring, 3-year term expiring June 30th, 2025.
Any comments from the board? If not, we'll go to a motion.
Does she want to?
Oh, would you like to say any words? Oh, so,
Oh, she's here.
hello.
I'll be short.
Thank you.
Thank you. The reason I wanted to speak was I'm on several committees in town and would really like to sort of introduce myself, I guess. My husband and I have lived in Littleton for 50 years in the same house. And before that, I lived with my parents in Littleton. I graduated from Littleton High School. When my daughter was younger, I was active in Girl Scouts in the town, etc. Served on Littleton School Committee for 12 years, was elected to that. I'm now on the COA board. And the reason I wanted to be on TRED is, as Anthony said, tax relief for the elderly and disabled. And I think a lot of people in town do not know about TRED. TRED depends entirely on contributions and donations. And TRED has received donations, yes, but right at the moment, TRED is in dire need of more donations. So that's sort of my PR pitch before, hopefully, you appoint me. But even if you don't, I'm giving my pitch.
I think the odds are in your favor. And thank you for all that you do for the town. We appreciate it. All right, Mr. Clerk.
Move that the Select Board vote to appoint Susan Melander, 160 Harvard Road, as a member of the Taxation Aid Committee, TRED, for a term expiring June 30th, 2025.
Second.
Motion made by Chuck, seconded by Cindy. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Motion carries 4-0. Thank you, Mr.
Mr. Chair, the next appointment is for the Zoning Board of Appeals. We have one alternate position for a term expiring June 30th, 2024. Mr. Nicholas Pellegrino, 42 Manchester Drive in Littleton, has put in an application. I see Mr. Pellegrino here, as well as the chair of the ZBA.
Would you like to say a few words, Mr. Pellegrino?
Nicholas Pellegrino, 42 Manchester. I'm already chairman of the TAC, so I'm really happy to also be doing this if you guys give me the opportunity. So thank you.
Thank you.
Yep.
Any comments from the board? If not, we'll go to a motion.
No comments from the chair.
Okay.
Move the Select Board vote to appoint Nicholas Pellegrino, 42 Manchester Drive, as an alternate for a term on the Zoning Board of Appeals expiring June 30th, 2024.
Second.
Motion made by Chuck, seconded by Cindy. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 4-0.
Next item is some licensing. We have two requests for a one-day liquor license, and that's to support the PR Park and Rec's Oktoberfest. The first liquor license request is from the Common Foods, which is the pub. They did the alcohol last year at the event, and we'll start with.
How you guys doing?
Hello.
Yep, so we're just submitting for a one-day liquor license. This will be our third year now doing it, and we've had great success with it, and I've had no troubles with it, so hoping to run it back.
He's been standing in the back for a long time, just to say that.
I thought it was 8 o'clock.
This is going to be.
I didn't want to be late for it.
This is going to be at Fay Park. Okay. And there's no issues from the police or anyone?
No, the only thing
everyone's
I heard
approved?
from last year is the beer could be colder, but that's, I'm just saying. Other than that, it was great.
You heard that from Pinard?
I'm not saying.
Okay. Is there any commentary from the board? If not, we'll go to a motion.
Move the Select Board vote pursuant to Master Law, Chapter 138, Section 14, to issue a special license, also known as a one-day liquor license, to James Hopkins of Common Foods Incorporated for wine and malt beverages to be served during the Park Recreation and Community Education's PRCE October 1st, 2022 Oktoberfest event between the hours of 12 p.m. and 5 p.m.
Second.
All those, motion made by Chuck, seconded by Cindy. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Motion carries 4-0. Thank you.
Do we have a check by any chance? Against that part?
Tried to get out, tried to slip one by there, didn't you?
The house always wins.
The house always wins.
Ryan.
Anthony.
The next request is, our two craft brewers here that are working feverishly to open up their business on 24 Porter Road. I had the opportunity with the Select Board member Rambacher to tour last week, and you guys are doing a great job. You're here today also to participate in the Oktoberfest event, and they're also seeking a one-day liquor license.
That's correct. Yep.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Also was standing up back for a while.
Anything to add?
I mean, we have a whole bunch of beer and fermentation, so.
Okay, that's good to know.
We're ready to go, yeah.
And again, no issues from anybody on this one either, I assume. Everyone's fine with it.
Everybody's fine with it.
You got the memo about being
Make sure
cold?
it's cold.
Cold, yeah.
All right, I'll entertain a motion.
Move the select board vote pursuant to Master Law, Chapter 138, Section 14, to issue a special license, also known as a one-day liquor license, to Christopher Loring of Dirigible Brewing Company for wine and malt beverages to be served during the Park Recreation and Community Education PRC October 1st, 2022 Oktoberfest event between the hours of 12 p.m. and 5 p.m.
Second.
Motion made by Chuck, seconded by Mark. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thanks,
Please
guys.
exit
Getting
through
involved
the gift
right away.
shop.
Do you have an opening day yet?
Not quite yet, still, we're still working.
All right, what are we on to? Special town meeting, I believe? Warrant?
Yes, special town meeting warrant. So we have a draft. Let's see. It's in it? Let me just pull it up on here for a second. All right, so he's calling it up, and it's beyond that computer, and I'm going to take a copy. Okay, so just reviewing the 16 articles that we have for special town meeting on November 1st, Tuesday, November 1st. First article, Article 1, is bills of prior year. We do have some bills that I think I mentioned at the previous meeting that were left over from the orchard, some water and electric bills that were unpaid from last fiscal year when we inherited the property. So we'd be looking for those to be part of Article 1. Article 2 is to amend the FY '23 operating budget. We went over that spreadsheet in earlier this evening. Article 3 is the capital items from available funds. We discussed those earlier. That would be Article 3. Article 4, the capital stabilization fund transfer. This would be where the $166,000 for the police radios would be coming out of and be included in Article 4. Article 5 is the Oak Hill Stabilization Fund transfer. If you recall, at the annual town meeting, we need to do some revolving fund cleanup and close those accounts. That money went into free cash. Once Alicia has free cash certified by the Department of Revenue, we'd be looking to repurpose that money for the Conservation Department. The next article, Article 6, is the senior tax work-off. As you recall, you increased that from 1,000 to 1,500. We had some old language that we actually had a warrant article that authorized that. You don't need that warrant article because the law is pretty clear on what the select board can and cannot do. So although that you did increase it, this is just a cleanup article just to memorialize that and codify that in our bylaws. The next item is the Veterans Property Tax Work-Off Abatement Program. Same thing as the Senior Tax Work-Off Program. That's just a cleanup article. Article 8 is the Community Preservation Fund donation. So there was funds that were that were from the sale of the Cooper Farmhouse, $350,000, as well as there was a couple other donations
I
to
think there were some
the
payments.
Affordable Housing Trust.
Yes.
There were some payments from
Payments in
Grimes
lieu.
Lane, maybe?
Yeah.
or-
Yeah, and maybe Jones Meadow, but
Yeah,
I'm not certain.
okay.
Yeah, but a
So-
couple properties, yeah.
Yeah, so what we're recommending is put that into the blended CPC, so we could try to take advantage of that additional match by the state. I think last year was about 30%. So, and then what we would do at the annual town meeting is transfer those funds from the CPC to the Affordable Housing Trust, like we did 4 years
Yeah.
ago, I think it was.
Right.
So just to maximize our return on investment for that. Article 9 is another CPC article, and this is allocating that, the buckets of the funds that we receive from the state on the match, and the CPC took a vote, and that's the way that they want to split it up. And then the second part of this would be the funding for the design and through construction for the tennis courts, which you heard earlier this evening. And not sure, there may be another CPC article, maybe not, depending upon the historic deed restriction. I don't know if we have to do anything with that, Linda. I don't think so. Okay. So then there could be just the one item. Article 10, we, as you realize, that we settled with our firefighters union. This article is just memorializing that. Article 11 is the class and compensation plan. So that's the study that we've been waiting for. That's going to be presented next week. That would be Article 11. Article 12, Cindy, you sent an email of which myself and town council made some comments. It's in the packet. These are what we feel that we can go off of right now on those, while others, I think, need a little bit more work with the, especially with the procurement laws.
Right.
There is another municipal modernization supposed to be coming out, so we really need to kind of see that, and then we would, you know, certainly look at our procurement
Right.
policy.
So just to give the board some context, actually, Anthony, you were the assistant town administrator at the time. We had taken a number of bylaws and actually gave them to staff and said, please review them and provide us with your comments. So some of the comments contained in that summary came from that review from staff. And we just had never gotten around to actually addressing it. So I think there's some low-hanging fruit there that we can
Yeah, I think
address.
you're scratching at the surface of some of
Right.
the stuff that we can go at, but
Yeah,
you're right, this was the
let's just do it
low-hanging fruit.
now. Yeah, okay.
Exactly. So I think this covered everything, Cindy, that you wanted, but if there's something
Yeah,
else.
and I read through that email from council. I assume the board got it too.
Yes, we
Yeah,
did.
it's in the
Yeah,
packet.
it's in the packet.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, just to, so areas
is.
that we need to,
It's on the screen behind you.
It's
too.
important to maintain our civil defense against the Ruskies.
Yeah,
Is
exactly.
what
You
I
never, you
got
never
out
know,
of that.
right? You
Yeah.
never know,
Yeah.
yeah.
so, yeah, we can just mark those for further discussion.
Right. All right, Article 13, Myron's indicated that the planning board's gonna have some amendment to the inclusionary housing bylaw. They're working through that with council's office.
Do you know what this is, what this statute refers to?
I
GL?
don't, but
Okay.
I don't
I
think
can
there's
ask
anything
Maren.
of substance there,
Okay.
Matthew. I think it's kind of some cleanup work. I could be wrong, but that was my recollection in speaking with Myron.
Thank you.
Article 14, we have a street acceptance for Douglas Street. This looks like we're right on target to have this ready for town meeting on the 14th. Article 14. Article 15 is the Cobwell Conservation Restriction Amendments. This is a Board of Water Commissioners article that they've been working with town council on this. So right now, they requested that. We have that in there. And
Do you know if Conscom has weighed in on that?
I know they're working with them,
Okay.
and I think there's more work to be done. So there's still quite a bit of work to be done. I'm not even sure if
That
this
was that's my
yeah.
understanding as well.
Yeah.
But okay.
We're hoping to have this done, but I wouldn't be surprised if we had to pull this if they weren't ready for something. But they certainly are trying hard to get there.
Got it.
In Article 16, we have a citizen petition article, and this puts a cap on the number of marijuana farms allowed in the town of Littleton. I forwarded you off some information today, which was the signatory pages that the town clerk just certified, all of the signatures. Take a peek at your email for that. This article would be a non-binding article. It's not in the right format for it to actually be an impact on.
It's not a bylaw or a
It's
policy.
not, you know, we deal with marijuana and zoning, and this isn't the way to attack an article like that. Certainly it takes the temperature of town meeting, though, it would depend on if this was something that the moderator wanted to take up, and that will be a discussion we'll have with the moderator as we get closer. And that's your 16 articles for a town meeting that we're looking for the select board to vote to insert those into the warrant.
Are there any comments from any of the board members before we go to the motion? If not, let's do it.
Move the select board vote to insert the following articles onto the warrant for the November 1st, 2022 special town meeting, subject to approval as deformed by town council. Go through.
You want to just
As read.
write as
As read by the
presented
town
by the
administrator.
town administrator?
Yeah.
Save you some.
Thank you.
I wanted to hear him read them.
I will.
No, look, we're finally ahead of schedule. Don't screw it up,
Listen,
Mark.
Mark, it's like a bedtime story. You might fall asleep on it. You never know.
Very soothing tone.
Could I have a
Very
second on the
soothing.
motion, please?
Second.
Motion made by Chuck, seconded by Mark. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Motion carries 4-0. Thank you very much. All right, on to select board discussions.
So the first item we have here is 12 Robinson Road. And in your packet, and Linda Stein's here, who will get up and be able to speak to this. I'll kind of just tee it up here for her. The Historical Commission took a vote to change the position from basically from originally including the land in that historic deed preservation restriction to just the structure, to kind of generalize it. Although they took a secondary vote that was concerning to me because it was that they didn't really want to hold the deed restriction. Normally, when you do something like that, your Historic Commission does hold a restriction, although in speaking to Linda, we had a great conversation with her, town council, Andrew participated in that, and Linda, if you want to come up and Linda can speak to it, I think that their concern is really some of the inspectional that has to be done. And, you know, and that's why they took the position that they did, but I think that we might be able to come to a resolution where they would hold that deed restriction so we can continue forward with the P&S on 12 Robinson Road. Linda, you want to?
Sure.
Continue on?
So as Anthony said, a couple of members of the Historical Commission had a Zoom call with Anthony and Tom and another town council, and it was very helpful. Based on that conversation, the Historical Commission wants to relook at our position of serving as grantee for the historical preservation restriction for 12 Robinson Road. We're going to discuss it Wednesday night. Only two of us have discussed it so far, so I can't speak for the whole commission. But we'll talk about it Wednesday night, and I think that we will probably agree to serve as the grantee, which reverses our previous position. We would probably do that based on some assurances from the town that Anthony and Tom and I talked about in our call, and that is we will need some resources. We will need to hire a professional historic preservation consultant to help us review the design plans and also do the inspections, especially once the renovation work, the rehabilitation work starts on the historic structure, to make sure that the work's being done correctly and that it meets the requirements of the deed restriction or preservation restriction. So we would need some assistance with that. And then if at any point there would be enforcement actions needed, we would need the assistance of town council. So that's what we're thinking at this point.
So was your concern primarily around the build, or was it long-term maintenance of the historical
Both.
restriction?
I think in the short term, the most intensive work will be inspecting it while it's being rehabilitated. Because that'll be the bulk of the work, that'll be, kind of the most important in a sense. And so that's when we need some help from someone who knows how to inspect these things and make sure that it's done correctly. But yes, because this is in perpetuity, in the deed restriction, and many other towns have it, it's an annual inspection. So It's not that labor intensive. And maybe that's something we could do on our own, but it depends what happens. We don't know. If it's going to be condos, we might want to make sure that the historic structure is being maintained the way it's supposed to.
Okay.
So.
And what I referenced earlier, perhaps once we identify that person that could help, that could be a funding through the CPC, perhaps in the annual town meeting for that annual cost.
Yeah, I need to look into that and make sure that CPC would cover such a thing. I think there's a good chance that CPC would cover that, but I want to obviously make sure that the state law covers that.
Got it.
so.
Any comments from the board on this? Okay, and no motion necessary right now? Or is there one?
No, it's their
It's,
Yeah,
the
no,
ball's
I-
in their court, we'll update
Okay.
at the next meeting, Ryan will have that on the agenda. Certainly, I want to thank Linda, Andrew, for their willingness to work with us as we work through this.
Thank you.
Through this
Yeah.
process.
Thank you very much. Okay, members on the EDC, Mr. DeCoste, do you want to
Sure.
kick this
actually.
one off?
And I just saw Shannon walk in. So we, I mentioned this before, that we wanted to try to pare back to 7 members. At one point, we had multiple people that wanted to step up and be on the EDC. One of those members that we appointed at that point in time has moved out of the state. And so we just want to go back to the original 7.
Yep.
And just
Okay.
reseat the board at 7 members, because that'll make it a lot easier for us to get a quorum, because when we go to 8, now we have to have 5 people present. And
Do you currently
we can
have 7 members?
We do.
Okay.
Okay.
Anthony?
Chuck, do you want to consider what the Sustainability Committee did too, and kind of getting rid of, going away from the indefinite terms, and maybe having the EDC propose terms for the next meeting or the meeting
Yeah, I think
after?
that's something we could definitely take a look at, just to give people a bite-size portion. Yeah, it's a good idea.
Okay.
All right, so we'll put that on the
Something we
next
can put on our agenda as well.
agenda. If it's ready for the next meeting, just let Ryan know I'm on my last week of vacation, I promise. From the carryover that I have to do is next week. So Ryan will be preparing for the meeting on the 26th.
Okay.
Must be nice.
All right. Ready for a motion, everyone? Any other comments? All right, let's do it.
Move the select board vote to set 7 as the number of members on the Economic Development Committee.
Second.
Motion made by Chuck, seconded by Cindy. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries 4-0. Thank you.
That was quick.
All right, update on the Gog Orchard. Hi, Tim.
Just wanted to note to the board that our thanks to Tim. He's been here pretty much almost all night here, sitting in. So
Thank you, Tim.
Hopefully we had plenty of caffeine, so.
We owe him a cold beer at the Oktoberfest.
Really cold, though.
We'll see if I make it there. We have a baby due right around that time, so.
Oh, congratulations.
Thanks. All right, so, Mr. Chair, Select Board, this is an update as of last week. All of these numbers are put into this. So, Ryan, if you can just go right through them. This is a map that we've been using for pretty much the whole summer and the updates that we've been giving you. So I would say it is safe to say that about 80% of the property has been fully completed. As we stated, was that everything was mowed, cleared under the trees. Sticks, rocks, and debris have been removed. Partially completed. We don't really have anything that's partial. The side closest to Goldsmith is the parcels that we really didn't get an opportunity to really get in there before all the guys started football practice. So that's kind of where we stand. Originally, we budgeted this project to run through the Friday before Labor Day, which is what we did. So we went to a full stop, and we'll talk a little bit more about that when we get to the budget process. So first and foremost, I just wanted to take the opportunity to recognize the gentleman who actually got us to where we are. So Paul Brown, who was a former Orchard employee, Alex DeLorenzo, who is a Littleton student here, Connor McNeil, Andrew Milner, Richie Powderly, and Ray Viebert. So without them, none of this was possible. Those guys worked extremely, extremely hard through some really tough conditions this summer. So publicly, I just want to take an opportunity to thank them and let everybody know who really got it to this point. So most of you guys have seen some of these pictures, but just for the public, these are kind of the fields as they sit. Hopefully with the rain last week and this week tomorrow, we're going to start greening up a little bit. You can move to the next one. Structures. One of the things that we did kind of tackle the last week was we really did a big cleanup out there. We filled one dumpster stuffed to the brim. We also had a C&D dumpster full of a lot of stuff. So this is the main barn, first floor for everybody to see it. So before and after photos of what we were able to accomplish. This is kind of still the main barn. This used to be the staff quarters as well as the kitchen. Then we have downstairs, which used to be the gift shop, and the garage adjacent to the apple cooler in the bottom pictures. With the help of select person Napoli, we were able to get all these tires gone. So we had 72 tires picked up. And
She
taken
hung them
away.
around trees all over town. The swings everywhere.
Tire swings for everybody.
Yeah.
You get a tire swinging. You get a tire swinging.
You can see now the lower barn is pretty clear. The only thing left in the lower barn that hasn't been taken care of is the loft, and that includes the same thing as the upper barn. In my quotes, as far as expenditure estimates, I did keep those in there just in case it was the pleasure of the board that we do want to get people back in there and clear those lofts out as well. Lower barn, so what you can see here, this is the back room that used to be filled with all the mattresses and other different furniture, as well as tons of other stuff, and then the workshop, which has been cleaned up. All the tools have been organized and just kind of in a place where people can get in there and really kind of inventory what's left and see it. All right, so as far as the budget is concerned, we started this summer out with our full budget of just under, I think we appropriated 70,000.
Thought it was 85.
85. So as far as the numbers
Somewhere
go, we did move some money around this. I worked with Alicia up in the finance department, and we did move some money around to cover some of our costs because we did have extra money appropriated in the wage lines. Currently, we are sitting with the most money in the wage line, which is the $47,8690 that you see. The stipend was what I was given in order to oversee this project for the summer, which is zeroed out as of the last payroll. Vehicles and fuel, we have $127.76. That has already been spent, which you'll see in the next slide. It just happens to be as of this last report, that's what was in that bucket. And then the equipment, we were down to zero. So, that number, if you could, just of 5,313.66 is in there. So going to the next slide for me. Do you guys mind if I just twist this a little bit? All right. So outstanding bills, from the best estimates that we could get, because these are bills that are still coming in and we weren't really sure of the fuel prices when we ran this report. Looks like we're gonna have about $600 in unleaded gasoline for the months of July and August, with what we've spent. Probably about $800 worth of diesel fuel to pay for. The mattress dumpster, the actual cost was $738. The trash dumpster was $372. Your estimated price in the trash dumpster is the $372 plus 2 additional dumpsters, which is what I would estimate is probably the debris that's left in both lofts of the barn, if you guys decided that we wanted to clear that out on our own. C&D dumpsters, we do have one outstanding bill of $580. Once again, there's 2 additional dumpsters. One additional dumpster for C&D in there to bring us up that cost. Everything that's stacked on the pad still. The last time you guys walked, we had the apple crates full of the old wood. We have, we were able to put about 50% of the original stuff in there. So we should be able to fill up one more dumpster and be done with what we have. Outstanding equipment bills, there's about $1,500 for repairs and other things, equipment that we have from Chirico Tractor and from Littleton Power Equipment. There was some repair bills that need to be done to the field mower that was actually purchased for the highway department that we used out there. Some covers, one of the handles on one of the sides, just things that have been torn up by the vines and everything that was out there. Some of the equipment we had wasn't really well versed for the terrain that we put it through. We did unfortunately, blow up one of the lawn mowers that we purchased for out there. We had a little push mower you use for your yard that we were using under most of the trees. So your estimated total, all told, actual number is $1,690. Your estimated number is at $5,180. So if you take that against the balance remainder on your previous sheet, we are at $133.66, so we're still in the positive. We don't need to appropriate anything else in order to cover where our estimates are at. The only thing that I was in there is the utilities, which you guys talked about from previous years, which is going to need to be covered at the town meeting, which were 53506. Estimating that out because they're still on the hook for paying utilities every single month that it's out there. There's a service fee at the least. Now until whatever you guys wanted to appropriate to or till it's turned over, a safe bet that I kind of got from Light and Water was that, $1,000, $1,035 to cover, any additional fees that we might incur. So with the balance from previous years and what, we might occur until it's possibly turned over, we would be about $910 deficit from what we originally appropriated.
That's just house utilities, water and electricity.
It's just, right now, it's just electric.
Just electric.
That's what I understand
Electric
from
and a little
Diane's
bit of
email.
water, but just the utilities will be covered as part of our facilities budget, so it actually wouldn't end up, we'd still be in the positive, because we're gonna have to pay through that. That's what we're paying it now, for facilities.
Okay.
So 133.66 is what's left. So it's up to you guys what you want to do from here on out. But we are starting to get some rain. We just did a ton of work out there. I don't know if it is you're wanting to continue with going on, but we still do have Paul on board. There's the opportunity to possibly get somebody else out there. If we were just using one person mowing and weed whacking, figured $150 in gasoline, $1,000 in diesel a month. Payroll would run us about $4,000 at Paul's hourly rate of $25 an hour. I don't know if you want it to still oversee it, but I did, put the stipend back in there. Equipment bills, just a $500 to be safe. A lot of the stuff on the tractor is what would be called consumables. So some of the blades, especially on the flail mower, they're meant to break so we don't destroy the drive shaft. There's also collars on the field mower that shear off instead of breaking it, like if we hit rocks and stuff like that. So, it's definitely safe to have it in there. It's going to be somewhere between $6,000 and $7,000 a month to keep maintaining it through when we get to October, November, whenever everybody decided what they want to do, or sometime before that. But that's about what we've run as an average if you take that all the way down to just one man. All right. Any questions on the budget up to that point?
So, is it an option to not do any more? I mean, this is a silly question, but like, if we don't mow for the rest of the year, like, are we going to be right back where we started at the beginning of next year?
Depends on how much rain we get.
Yeah.
No, we're not, the grass is slowing now,
Yeah.
so it's not going through its growth spurt. It won't,
So,
it may need another mow,
yeah.
but if we stop mowing in October, it's gonna,
So I'm curious what the payroll.
look like my yard.
Right, what Paul would do with that payroll.
So right now, we haven't mowed in about, what is this, 2 weeks? Let's just call this 2 weeks for round numbers. So we would send him out there and do whatever mowing was necessary, or weed whacking, whatever. There's still, the back half of the property that we didn't take the bittersweet out of the trees and that kind of stuff.
Okay.
So there is other things, if you want to continue doing it, that we didn't get to in the initial scope of work.
How long does it take if we allocate it for like one more
more
mow?
cut.
Are we talking
A week.
that's a week or a month or?
week.
Yeah, it takes about 40 hours on the Kubota tractor to just go between the rows and do the entire property.
Okay.
And that's, just to be clear, that's just doing the rows. It's not under the trees or anything.
Yeah.
Just to line that out.
Make it pretty.
All right, Clean Harbors. We actually received this estimate at 6 p.m. tonight. So Clean Harbors came out, they did an assessment on the leftover pesticide, paint, all of the things that would need to be disposed of. I sent that off to Anthony and Ryan. Obviously didn't have a chance to get in your packets. Would you guys like to the opportunity to review that first, or do you want me to tell you what that number was?
I'd like to know what the number is.
Okay, so
And then review it.
Yeah. So for total disposal, it was $43.71.50. So that's for them to pick it up, get rid of everything, dispose of it. To break that down for you guys, the drums that they pack come in at $21.85. For all of the paint and all of the different types of fuel incineration, that's going to be $360. So that line item comes to $25.45. Then for all the pesticides broken out into each type of pesticide, it was $350, $385, $105, $21, $17.50, $420, and $268 respectively, for a line item total of $1566.50. There is a $200 transportation and pickup fee for your total balance of $4,371.50.
It's actually not as bad as I expected.
No.
I was thinking 10 grand easy.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was, so
That's
that
not
was the
bad.
number he gave me when we were standing in the barn, so
He was just trying to scare us.
probably.
I'm sure that they're only taking paint that they need to take, right? Like, they're not taking latex house paint that can be,
OVOC, yeah.
right?
Yeah, everything that's there is
Like lead or
30
I don't
years
think
old.
there's
Yeah.
anything, yeah.
There's nothing there
I don't
that's
think there's any use.
There's nothing there that's usable, but yes, everything
Okay,
that
very
he
good.
assessed is stuff that would need to be disposed of. The one thing that we can do when it comes to the paint things is we could compare it against our mutual site that we have at Devon's for all the towns,
As
but there
waste
will
day.
be a fee. There's also a fee to disperse it there as well, which I'm not sure of what that is.
And plus the time spent just schlepping it. I mean,
Correct.
the paint is what?
Yeah,
What
that
was
was-
the paint? $360 or
Correct.
something?
My son's gonna pick up.
Your son? I don't think you want to expose him to this stuff.
Yeah.
I got 5.
Yeah, right? The heir and the spare, right? Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, Haskell pruning. Mr. Haskell reached out to me on multiple occasions. The last opportunity was last Wednesday as I was putting together this report, so I just figured I would let everybody kind of know. He basically, said to do phase 2 would be estimated about $15,000 cost. Last year you did what he's referring to as phase 1, which was 2,000 trees located in field 4 and 5 as they were notated by him. So basically this is something that needs to be done to the trees. It needs to be done to all the trees. All of the trees need to have phase 1 done at some point. However, these are the trees that were already done. If you didn't do them this year, you would be going back to phase 1, which that money was appropriated last year. So, you'd be incurring approximately another $15,000, $25,000 worth of work, depending on the state that they were, to go back to phase 1. He's looking to complete work between January 1st and March 1st because he's already booked up to those points. Like I said, that was approximately 2,000 trees. Further years, as long as he's able to do this phase 2 this year, estimated cost would be $5 to $8 per tree moving forward. Just so you guys have all of that information, and I'll let Ryan speak. I know it would be an RFQ situation.
Yeah, it would be under $50,000, so we would get quotes for it if we wanted to continue on with this. Haskell already giving us a price, we know we'd be able to do that. Again, just seek some other quotes for that to move forward, so for the service.
Oh, we can do nothing and wait to see what Stormlawn comes in and
so-
says.
Right. Correct.
If
Right.
Plan B, whatever Plan B is, if we don't.
All
do
of this is just so you guys have all the information, so you know what the numbers are when you're
I
making your
think
decisions.
we're going to have this discussion, but like safe harbor seems like a no-brainer to me. This pruning is way more tied into the lease, right?
I think so.
And what Shannon wants to do, so.
And it might, some of the fields that Haskell would be pruning may be fields that
Yeah.
the next orchardist wouldn't even wanna.
Correct.
Might be
Okay.
mowing under,
Okay,
in my opinion.
All right, that's it. That's all I got for you.
Great.
thank you.
Thank you,
Yeah,
Tim.
no problem.
Yeah, and thank you for calling out those that, were out there along with you, and, I
Right.
mean, it was all hands on deck, and I
Yeah,
think
it
everybody
was
did a really
great.
nice job.
Right.
It's much
Do you
appreciated.
want to take the lead on this one?
Yeah, if I could.
Yeah.
So, Tim, thank you for that presentation. Thank you for all your work this summer, organizing and managing the staff. Phenomenal job.
Thank you.
I mean, hands down, couldn't have asked for more. So many comments from the residents thanking us, so happy just to see the progress that was made on the orchard, and it was certainly a labor of love. I mean, think of the conditions this summer. Couldn't have been worse to be out in those conditions working. So thank you to everybody that was involved. So just a few things to update the board about. There's a number of things that we need to address as a board with regard to the orchard, and I'm just gonna put them all out there, and then you all can decide, we can decide collectively how to move forward. With regard to the pruning, the working group did meet last week, and we had a discussion about pruning. There were 2 fields that weren't pruned at all last year, and it was the recommendation of the working group that perhaps those be pruned this year. So we called upon John Clements from UMass, is been a great consultant working with us. So he's actually gonna meet me at the orchard on Wednesday, and just to give a current assessment of the trees and what he thinks we should do going forward. You know, should we focus on the 2 fields we didn't prune last year? Should we focus on the fields we did prune? We're gonna get his input before we decide how to move forward. The other issue that the board needs to decide upon is the apples. We need to figure out what we're gonna do with the apple surplus. The potential lessee has no interest in taking them. We have been contacted by Boston area gleaners, and they're interested in the surplus. I did talk to town council, and she stated that we should probably just issue an RFP. I think we have to, just because it's surplus product, not that we're planning on getting any income from it, but it was her recommendation that we issue an RFP.
We've never done surplus fruit, but that'll be.
I know, right? So I'm like, 'cause, yeah, I asked Jenny and she goes, yeah, you kind of have to. So, because it's valuable, it's worth money to somebody. So I would personally, Boston area gleaners would be ideal.
They find a home for it.
They would find a home for it, hands down, but that's what she recommended. We can definitely follow up with her and just confirm that if you want to, Anthony, or,
Yeah, we can have a conversation
You wanna
just to
talk
see what
about that?
else she might, I've never surplus.
well, plus we don't know how much the fruit's worth.
Right.
So
I
I don't
haven't
even
been
know.
up there, honestly, I don't know if anybody's been up there to see what the condition of the apples are in.
Well, and that's just it, they're untreated apples, so Boston Area Gleaners is the type of organization that would want those apples.
Right.
So if you, yeah, so let's follow up with town
Sure.
council and figure out how to do that, but we need to, I'd rather take care of that sooner rather than later.
We really should.
I just think you made a really good point about the value. I mean, that ties back to whatever the procurement is, because if we've got cider companies that don't want it because the value is so low, then we wanna make sure that we value it low so that we don't get whacked in some way, shape, or form through the RFP process, right?
Yeah, exactly, right, it's weird. I'm gonna
Yeah.
talk to John Clements about it on Wednesday too, and just get his input. The other thing is the well and irrigation system need an assessment and repair. We've determined that. Matthew's been reaching out to companies just to try to get them to come out and just take a peek at that.
And I have a meeting with someone tomorrow morning at 8:30 at the Orchard.
Oh, perfect.
Corbett called me this morning and said, we have a slot open. So I'm meeting him there at the Orchard to look at the well. Because everyone has said, you gotta get the well working before you get this irrigation.
Okay, which would make sense, right?
Yeah, right.
Okay, so that's good. So we gotta move forward on that. The house and barn, I sent you guys the estimate that we had, just an initial overview of the repairs needed for the house and the barn. Those things certainly, many of them we don't really need to do, with the exception of, there's some gutter issues on the barn and the house that is causing water infiltration. So I would like to address those sooner rather than later, and just find out what if the board's in agreement with that or not.
Did you, when we got that quote from Classic, did they break out that work separately from the big quote of 190 grand or whatever it was?
I think they just broke out the work, but it was still all in one
Okay,
big
so,
lump sum.
I mean, it makes sense to mitigate the water as soon as possible, because that's gonna just cause a lot more damage and cost down the road. But I'm
Right.
curious how much it would be to just do those things.
Just
like,
do the
Just do
gutters.
the Band-Aid, basically.
Right, and there was there was damage to the white barn, that lower white barn, there's a big hole in the side of it, and a broken window pane, like, those are just, I don't know what it's gonna cost to repair, but that's causing the interior of that building to be exposed to the elements, so I think that's something else that we should take a look at. And then getting the house cleaned out, the house is cleaned out, but I'd like to get it cleaned. professionally by someone just because it's gross. And it would be nice just to get that done, for lack of a better word. And then Tim just already talked about the pesticide removal.
Great.
So that's where we're at on that. What I would propose to the board is that we hold off on making any decisions about pruning till after I've spoken with Mr. Clements and can come back to the board with his assessment
I agree.
on that situation. And then the apple surplus, Anthony and I will follow up, just confirm with town council about what to do about it. It's funny, right?
It is kind of, it's just.
So, because, like I said, the lessee has no interest in that. And then the well and irrigation, Matthew's looking into. And then I guess the big question is just, how would you like to proceed with the barn and the house repairs and the house clean up, not out?
Do you have any sense from your speaking with Jenny and Shannon how the negotiations are going and whether there's any idea that he's gonna be in there soon?
No.
Okay. Like, no,
No, he's not gonna be in
he's
there
not gonna
soon.
okay.
No,
All right.
no.
What's your definition of soon?
This year.
Oh, well, I don't know.
Like,
can't
I
speak
would
to
say
that.
we need to repair the houses before the winter. Like, that would be my.
Yeah, I mean, there's water coming down, there's water coming into the buildings.
Where infiltration has been identified, where I think Mr. Mullen being a good person
We
to ask,
should-
and Classic went out and looked and identified some areas, I think, right? when they were
Yeah,
on it.
right.
I think those areas certainly should be the highest priority to get buttoned up.
Right.
Tim?
If I made to that point, one thing that I didn't include in my assessment was there will need to be a plan in place to winterize the buildings and or pay for fuel to heat the house and keep everything going. So that was one thing that I didn't include.
Would it be feasible to drain the water pipes and not heat it over the winter?
Probably, but that's probably an egg question.
Okay.
And we don't
That
know,
would save us a
someone might-
lot of money.
Well, somebody might be in there by the winter.
That would be great.
We did shut the water off, to my
Water's shut
understanding,
off
to
to
the
the
barn,
barn.
so that
But not the
should be
house.
The other side of the
drained.
street's on though, right? Yeah.
Yeah,
But
so-
I'm sure we can work with the water department to kill the water to the house or whatever, well, whatever we
We
may
can also
need
deal
to-
with that when it gets,
When
starts
it
to
gets to that
freeze,
point,
but,
because we don't need to do that now.
I mean, we're gonna spend, it's gonna be like $10,000 in diesel if we try to heat that house in the winter. I mean, it's huge,
kind of heat
it's
is it?
uninsulated. It's oil, yeah.
It's oil.
Oh,
Yeah,
it's
it's
oil?
fuel oil.
Awesome.
Anyway.
Okay.
It's two units,
Air or
Two
water?
boilers.
two boilers.
Yeah, two boilers, two tanks.
Does it have zone heating, like?
It does have zone heating. There's separate
does.
thermostats for I believe it's the first and the basement on the first floor, and then the rest of the house is on the one at the
Oh,
top
so
of the
that's
second.
helpful.
Yeah. Right now I have all the switches turned off, so.
Yeah, but
Okay. And so, as far as the Clean Harbors estimate, I assume the board wants to just move forward with that?
absolutely.
Yeah, I don't think we want to have that liability. I think we just want to get rid of that, you know.
I think so too.
But as far as, as much as I think getting the house clean, cause it's gross, that's a quote.
That's going in the minutes.
Yeah. Those are one of the things that, once we secure a lease and that kind of thing, I think we can degrossify it by hanging some of those little trees that you can put in your car and
Oh,
stuff
it's
like
way
that.
beyond that.
But I think
I just-
buttoning it up, and one of the things I talked to you today about is I've reached out to Charlie Ellis just to see if Neshoba Tech is even an option to do something. You know,
Right.
Maybe they could do clapboard on one side of the barn, the worst side of the barn, or something like that. So,
So
Who knows?
it sounds like we need to spend money on the pesticide removal and the basic emergency repairs. The apples is gonna be free, most likely. The irrigation, I think we need to find out, but we're not gonna spend any
Work in
money on it
progress,
until we
yeah.
talk to Shannon about it. And then the pruning, I think we're not gonna spend any money until we know more about what Shannon wants and what this guy from Mass
John Clemens says.
John
yeah.
Clemens
Clemens
says, right?
recommends, yeah.
So I would say tonight, at least, we should probably definitely approve safe harbors and probably find a way forward on the house repairs that we need to do right away. And I'm not sure how to get those estimates, but we should probably do that.
Do we want to plan on maybe doing one more cut?
One more mowing.
Yeah, I think if it's 40 hours, if it's 1 week of Paul being out there to do one more mow,
Is it gonna be aesthetics, or is it gonna be actually good for the trees? I guess is my question.
I don't have an answer to that question.
yeah, I don't either.
I mean, I just think it's
'cause
aesthetic.
Because it's a
It's
gross
just-
situation.
No, it's not, shut up.
Well, we want it to look nice. It looks nice now. We
It
don't
looks so
want
much better.
It looks so much better, you know, especially the areas that are visible from the street. It would be nice to keep those maintained and mowed, you know, one more time.
We're saying like $1,000
$1,000
of
a week.
wages plus a couple hundred in diesel or in fuel.
So what was your estimate, 4,000 for the month?
Well, that was,
For
yeah.
the
In
month.
the month, it's $4,000, so, you know, about $1,000 a week, to have somebody out there 40 hours, Paul specifically.
So at the very least, we know, the cost that we do know is a little bit less than $9,000 that we would need. Obviously, I need to speak with Alicia, we need to find a funding source for that.
Right.
And in the meantime, perhaps Ryan, you can have a conversation with Ed and see what we could get for an estimate for,
Refined.
yeah, for,
But,
not to the extent that they supplied. I think that was for a lot more than what Cindy was just talking about. The original estimate for Classic, $188,000.
That was for the house
That
and
was
the
the whole
barn.
thing, right. So
Yeah,
we-
so that was like,
Yeah,
if you break
roofs,
that out, it's
clapboards.
gotta be, yeah, that was for the, everything, for both buildings. I think for the house, it's gotta be so much less.
Do
You
we
said,
need
so
to-
the house is, that's got his?
That was the house and the barn in that estimate.
No, I know that, but you're saying to the gutters, was it just the house or the barn, did you?
Both.
Yeah, the house, where his ramp was, that whole rainwater
Soffit
mediation
like
system
thing,
needs
Super janky.
attention.
Yeah.
And, yeah, I'm just
That
afraid
water was getting in the
it
basement.
might open Pandora's box once we say to somebody, can you come look at the gutters?
But if we can even just stop, get water getting in, it'll be better than nothing.
Right.
So perhaps we can work on a quote, so you can work with Ryan and Ed, figure out, just to make sure specific what you want.
Yeah.
And then, we can bring back a quote for the next meeting and a funding source for
Yeah.
everything.
Well,
or-
what about safe harbors? Do we need to do an RFP for $4,300?
no.
Do we have that money, or can we,
No, we need
we'll have to
to,
find a place to spend it?
So we need to
Find a way to find it.
you know, at the very least, right now, I could take it out of our facilities budget, and then, you know, if we need to do an appropriation transfer later,
Okay.
then just keep in mind that we're tapping into our facilities budget with expenses that we didn't budget for, so we
Right.
would have to,
Well,
most
we have
likely.
not paid any money for this orchard for years.
Right.
Is my argument.
Yeah, no, it's, I don't think that there'd be an issue probably from
Yeah.
FinCom approving,
Right.
you know, the 10,000, and depending on what the house is, that could be another conversation,
Right.
that expense, we just don't know that one.
Right, and so then the last thing is, do we want to just keep Paul on for the month of,
The rest of September or something, or? Is he kind of on call, like, if we told
Yeah.
him, listen, we want you?
He actually showed up on Friday. I told him to go home. I said, we're gonna kind of stop right now. But yeah.
so, yeah, do we want to just keep him on for the rest of the September?
So for basically the 3 more weeks?
And it wouldn't be every day. He does have other jobs he works. So when I could get him in here, but yeah.
But actually, that would get us one more mowing right before October, and that would probably be it for the summer. For the season, I mean. I don't know.
I mean, the other thing we can do is ask the football guys if they want to come out and
On a Saturday?
just come out on a Saturday and keep around the houses and the barns, if that's what you're looking to do. That's another option.
Yeah, I was gonna say, because can they mow with apples on the ground?
With
Not
that
on the
tractor,
trees.
absolutely.
They don't even go to the trees. Yeah, just-
Okay.
that's
Yeah, the
gross.
Kubota would have no problem.
Okay.
I don't know what to do about the mowing,
Just
honestly.
cut it.
Like,
I mean, I think we should just do it till the end of the month,
okay. I don't have a problem with
As
that.
needed.
as needed,
Okay.
That's an aesthetic thing, right?
aesthetic. thing,
Well,
yeah.
or it's like queuing us up for next spring after it's pruned and mowed. We don't have to worry about maintenance first thing because the grass is shaggy as it starts growing.
Hopefully a lease is in place.
Yeah, hopefully.
Yeah.
Hopefully. Okay.
Right.
So then, so from what I'm hearing, you know, the board's okay with about $9,000, perhaps we could just take a motion to approve, for the mowing and the removal of the pesticides
Yeah.
and paints for, you know, $10,000. It's 9,000, right? A little less than 9,000.
Yeah, well, there's,
Where's the 9? I thought.
so it's 4,300 for safe harbor, maybe 3,000 for Paul's
I think
wages.
Tim had up there 4,000 a month for the expenses to continue on with.
Yeah, I thought we said we only needed a week though.
Well,
No,
just said till
we
the
just
end
said till the end of
End of
September.
the
Yeah,
month.
they just, right.
Oh.
And Paul wouldn't be there every single day, as Tim just said.
Are you all right with that? Mark, or?
I think it's hot, I don't think we have to do that much. I mean, I think having them out, you know, one more week, pick a week between now and Halloween.
And just
say,
Yeah.
come out some week and we'll be done.
We do it as
Not to exceed, yeah, we do it as a not to exceed $9,000 for the two things, for the rest of the mowing and for the.
It was like $4,400 for clean harbors, and it was
1,000 for mowing labor.
for a week, and then fuel.
And then fuels.
But I mean, we can, not the worst.
More like
We've got fuel at the highway barn, right?
Well, we do, but that's what.
Still paying for
We're
it.
still paying
We
for
have a
it.
gas so
It's
that we
metered,
go-
yes.
Yeah.
$7,500 maybe?
It gets billed out to the various departments when they gas off it at the barn.
So not to exceed $7,500.
So we're not gonna clean the house?
I think we should
So
wait
I think
until-
we should degrossify the house, but I think we should wait till we're closer to having a lease.
Cindy, you know what we
Because I
could
think it's
do?
gonna get gross again before then.
Okay.
Cindy, what we can do is we can have Lucy, who does the cleaning for town hall,
Oh,
give us a quote on, and going through the house, and then
okay.
perhaps we bring that back for the next meeting, just to let you know what something like that might cost. I have
Okay,
no
I
idea.
have no idea
She'd bring a
either.
team in there and,
If I
And
could, 'cause it's
have
also
that
material, because if someone is going to rent the house, you know, part of this lease agreement may be that they need to renovate it. So if we clean it up, they're gonna be knocking down walls, so we don't know that yet.
Right.
So if you look in the pictures, I haven't been out to the site, but it certainly needs extensive work. So, you know, it seems to me that, you know, so that the town isn't putting forth any expenses that we don't have to, it just would seem that.
Hold off for now.
Get a better sense for the lease, whether or not what they want, what exactly they want to do with it.
Right, right.
And I'm not disagreeing with you that it's dirty, it's just to say that
Gross.
when you think about, but when you think about getting it ready to that extent, you're getting, like, say, to get into move-in condition. And this, I don't know, even if we did clean it up like that,
Right.
whether someone be moving in, or they'd actually be looking to rip down all the walls and put in new
Right.
systems.
Yeah, I don't know that he's gonna be doing that.
I'm fine with getting it,
But-
I think even, I mean, if we degrossed it now, we don't know when he's gonna be moving in, and
It
we'll
could
probably be
get
doing
gross
it again
again.
later, so there's no point in doing it now if he's not gonna be taking the lease for 3 more months.
Right.
We're gonna
I
have
like
to
the
do it
idea
again.
of at least getting an idea of what it's gonna cost.
I agree with that.
So that
we can do
just
that.
use that.
We
Sure.
can call Lucy,
Okay.
take a ride.
All right, so the
All right.
motion's going to be safe harbors, a week of
Still
mowing.
clean harbors.
Sorry, clean harbors? Safe harbors, clean harbors? What is it? Clean harbor.
Clean
Yeah,
harbor.
What did I say?
No, you said safe, but I've
Safe
done the same
harbor.
thing.
Safe harbors.
Is there a difference?
Well, yeah, safe harbors is like, you can, someone's,
Domestic violence thing, or?
Yeah.
something like that.
Yeah.
Oh,
Whereas Clean Harbors is a company out of Braintree that
oh,
picks up
Okay, well,
hazardous
once
material.
an abuse
Live and learn.
shelter. Okay, gotcha.
all right, so what are we voting on?
That's
Not
a
to
great
exceed
question.
7,500?
Yeah, but
Yes.
are we going to enumerate what we're
Yeah, I
spending?
think we should.
So
enumerate it.
437150 is
Clean harbors, clean harbors.
And then,
2,000, 2,500, you just give him a budget so he knows what,
You know, 1,500 for mowing and like labor and materials for mowing?
I think 7,500 is a good number.
Okay.
So
Good.
that gives them
Okay,
a little
Left
wiggle
flip.
room.
let's do that.
Tim's been responsible, I'm sure he'll handle it.
Okay, that's fine.
Felt like
We
he
just want to see the
handled it.
receipts, Tim. Okay.
So it's 7,500 for pesticides and.
Mowing and-
Mowing.
Yeah,
Field maintenance.
field maintenance,
Okay, not to exceed, right? Or,
not to exceed
Not to exceed,
7,500.
yeah.
all right.
yeah, so
Fine,
I'm off
so
on
it's gonna be
the
the
Haskell pruning right now. When John comes back with,
Facilities.
I'll have a-
especially the stone fruit field, and those two fields.
Yeah.
He
Fields we
says,
didn't do last
you
year.
really should do those two fields, especially the stone fruit.
And then we're gonna have a
I
And then
agree
we
big,
come
about the
back and we
stone
say, okay,
fruit.
we need to.
we're gonna have a
budget
big
transfer.
conversation about the irrigation system too, I bet, so.
So we'll plan on doing that next meeting.
Yeah.
Part of the lease.
What's that? I'm
So
sorry.
the 75, sorry.
Go ahead.
Talking about having a pruning update and an irrigation
okay.
system update next meeting.
All right, I just want to make sure we have that. Okay.
Yeah.
Because we've-
I just wanted to be clear that $7,500, does that include the utilities you guys are gonna incur, or the town's going to
No,
incur?
I think
We have to pay the
utilities-
utilities anyways, Tim, and this is all coming out of facilities budget, so it's, again,
I just
it's
wanted
all,
to be clear, just
it's
to make
not,
sure.
we'll cover the utilities.
Okay.
It's $20 a month for the water, and,
Yep.
yeah, it's not a lot of money.
Okay.
Move the select board vote to authorize the town administrator and assistant town administrator to expend $43,7150 for Clean Harbors and up to, included, up to $7,500, not to exceed $7,500
Total.
for the semicolon, for the
Oh, my gosh.
maintenance.
It's just
of
not
the
to
orchard.
exceed 7,500. Just
$7,500
one number.
for the maintenance and clean harbors for the orchard.
I
Can I have a
wanted to
second,
enumerate.
Say it again.
Move the select board vote to
Authorize the town administrator or designee
or designee to
proceed with the work at the orchard
with
to
Clean
include
Harbors
clean harbors,
and maintenance.
maintenance not to exceed $7,500.
From the town hall facilities budget.
Yeah, we don't have to mention that.
Okay.
From a plan to be named later. A bag of rocks.
Second?
The motion was sort of made by Chuck and definitely seconded by Cindy. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 4-0.
What did we just say? I don't.
That was a
I
mess.
have no idea.
Yeah, what did we read?
All right.
I don't know.
Thank you, Tim.
Thanks, Tom.
All right,
Thanks, Tim.
thank you for so much for being patient. Tax title abutter lot sale program, hopefully we can bash
I think
through
we
these
can, yeah, we
quickly.
can go through these quickly, I think, Mr. Chair. This is something that was approved in Article 7 at the October 25th, 2021 town meeting. So this is just kind of completing that now and finally moving forward with the sale of that parcel.
This is the little bit that, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
All right, any questions from the board? If not, we'll go to a motion.
No questions?
Nope.
No.
Move the select board vote pursuant to Article 7 of the October 25th, 2021 special town meeting and in accordance with tax title abutter lot sales program adopted on December 5th, 2011 to approve the sale of the following tax title parcel and the execution of the select board of deed prepared by town council lot U14-11 comprised of 0.178 acres on Shaker Lane to abutter Elizabeth McQuilkin and Andrew Carlino for a sale price of $7,700.
Second.
Motion made by Chuck, seconded by Cindy. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Motion carries 4-0.
There are two of these going around.
Thank you.
One for
All right.
town, one for the.
Use of Littleton Common for the Meeting House Market.
Oh, talk about patience.
Thank you. Hello again.
Thanks for your patience.
Shannon and Madhavi Oliver.
See, here I was thinking Shannon was here to support me in the EDC.
I know, sorry. I mean, I was there to do that too.
Very good.
Thank you.
I did look at the time that it was supposed to be on the agenda. And just saying. I'm sorry.
So since last month, I have, we decided just to do a one-day event and fill in all the paperwork and have submitted a few requests. The main request being closing the Meeting House Road for the duration of the event on September 24th. And if we have more than 15 vendors, we ask for 5 vendors to be, to use the upper common.
Right across Meeting House
Yeah.
Road from your house, or
Yeah.
your, yeah, okay.
Right now, we are at 10, so we don't think in 2 weeks we're gonna go to 20. We can house about 15 in the property's yard.
Okay.
However, we wondered if the food truck, Little Town Coffee Truck has agreed to be part of this event. And we wondered if that food truck, could park on the Meeting House Road instead of parking in the driveway of the property.
If the road is closed, I'm sure that would be fine, yeah.
Yeah, there's no problem.
Makes good sense.
Okay. Okay.
There's another food truck in town, Rolling Pizza Kitchen.
Yeah, we've reached
Yeah.
out. If you've got an in there, we've
I-
reached
I-
out.
I do have an in there.
Okay, so we
I'll-
would
I will
love
get
to
back
have
in
that.
touch.
All right.
That'll help, yeah.
Okay.
And I've not had much luck with the parking situation. I reached out to,
I got that solved for you. You're all set to use the 550 King Street parking lot right across the corner. I spoke to them, you're all set.
Tuttle House or behind the
Or
motor
IBM.
station?
Whatever one you want to use, either one, either the IBM bigger lot, or if you want to park in the Tuttle House. IBM might be an easier to pull in and out of, but
yeah.
either one, you're fine. Don't
Thank
worry
you.
about it.
Oh, that's awesome. That's great to know. Thank
No,
you so
know,
much.
you know which one the house is right across from Il Forno?
The old house,
Yes,
yeah.
yes, there's like a brick paved
Yeah, yeah.
parking lot there as well.
Okay, great. So, we can kind of draw a map and say parking, and people can know where the
Yep,
parking is.
you're fine.
So we wondered if this event could be publicized in the town website, or is that something, because I'm officially not a non-profit or anything. The road race is on the town website.
Do we have an EDC page?
Shannon's working on it.
Yeah. You know, what I think you could probably do if you have the flyers is email it off to my office, to Diane, and then maybe we can get that on LCTV.
Oh, yeah.
They
that
do
would be
community
excellent.
events, so I think that might be the easiest to
Yeah.
get through. We can also look at the website on our EDC, but I don't think it's really,
Truth
Yeah.
be told, the different Facebook, mom pages,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
Littleton Trails, you ask for permission from the administrator.
Yeah.
Those get much more views
Yeah.
than our
Yeah,
website.
they
They
do,
do.
yeah.
Yeah, they do.
That's true.
certainly can tag us in Facebook to it, and,
Yeah, spread it,
our
spread the
followers
word
will.
that way.
Sounds good.
Both followers.
We're working on that.
We're working on it.
And one of them's a sock puppet, so.
So, I know that we have requested for police detail, and the police chief agreed to have just one detail. So if the event gets cancelled due to rain, I don't have to pay the police detail.
You should check on that with the chief.
There's
With the chief.
within a certain number of hours, you
Right.
can cancel, but within that, another time frame, you're still obligated to
To
pay.
pay, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, just double check with him, because it's, I don't think it's 24 hours, so, but
Okay.
he'll let you know exactly.
But have that conversation and sweet talk them, and,
Well, she did, she got it down from 2 police officers to 1, so great job.
Without it, too, I think
for
the
that.
chief may be going out of town too, so you may just want to call him tomorrow and make an.
Right,
Okay.
he is a conference on
No,
starting on Wednesday.
he's not, because of the
Okay,
mill, he said he's not going.
Oh, that's too bad.
really?
That's what he told me today. I mean, maybe he'll still go, but he said he's not, he canceled it.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
Regardless, give him a call.
Yeah, just double check that
yeah,
tomorrow with the
sooner
chief.
Yeah,
rather than
sure,
later.
I can,
Yeah.
email's okay, right, or do I have to
Email's
call?
fine,
Yeah.
he looks at his email, sure.
Okay, and then we would also like to invite selectmen.
Yeah, we'd love it if you would
You
come.
could come officiate it. So we'll send a
They'll be
formal
doing
invite, maybe.
I'll be
this week.
there.
Yeah.
I'm really happy that you got this to work out. I'm really excited for it, and I think this kind of thing is wonderful for the town. So good for you for
Yeah,
doing it,
it's
and
exciting.
I'm really, really happy that we found a way to make it work, so.
Yeah, so really thankful
Okay.
as well, and
Yeah.
hopefully it's a big success and could do another one, few months, or,
Sounds good.
Yeah,
yeah,
be great.
Kick off spring.
yeah, kind of, yeah.
If
Because
there's-
that's Oktoberfest.
I'll make that
and- Yeah. Sounds good.
All right.
Anything else?
Thank
Thank
you.
you so
Great.
much.
We got a
you.
motion, I believe.
More reading. Get my breathing down. Move that the select board vote to approve the application to use Littleton Common from Madavi Oliver, owner of 20 Meeting House, DBA Meeting House Market, for an event, First Meeting House Market, to be held on Saturday, September 24th, from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m., setup starting at 8 a.m., with up to 15 vendor tents on the common, in accordance with the conditions for this use of the Littleton Common as detailed with the application.
Motion made by Chuck, seconded by Mark. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries 4-0. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very
Thank you
much.
so much.
Good luck.
All right, I have to recuse myself.
Yes, thanks.
So
Yeah,
Chuck,
see?
you're driving the bus on this one, on the next one, because I
What
gotta
am I doing?
recuse myself.
Oh, look at that, huh?
Call me when you're done. I'm gonna go take a nap.
what's that?
Yeah, I can tee it up for you.
Yeah.
So what this is, you know, as you know, you renegotiated or amended the HCA, the original one with the collective, to include the cultivation and manufacturing. So when that happens, it's just formality with the CCC, and that's the Cannabis
Control Commission.
Yeah, thank you. That's they send us out a notice that basically asks, is he in compliance? Does he have an HCA?
Yep.
And is he comply with your zoning? And the answer to both of those questions is yes. So what the CCC does is sends this out. If we didn't respond, and we have 90 days to respond, then they would assume that to be okay, and they would just proceed without us. So I'd like to be able to sign that paperwork tomorrow and ship that off to the CCC. And, you know, he's still got to go through his planning board process, so that has to happen. But this is just kind of formality as part of the Cannabis Control Commission's
Right.
policies.
And
Authorizes you to sign.
any other questions about it?
No.
My only question was if we're in front of the planning board on this because they did not vote it on their last meeting because they didn't have a quorum for this. So I wasn't sure if we should be doing this before or after them.
So this is just this is really the CCC, not the planning board.
Yeah,
This is the state compliance, not for.
right. So as long as they still have to get all the compliance.
Oh, absolutely,
Yeah.
yeah.
You still have to, yeah,
Yeah, we can't move forward
absolutely,
without that.
yeah.
Want me to read it?
No.
Since you're in charge?
Oh, yeah, sure.
And then Cindy can second.
Deputized as the clerk.
Mark, can you just say, move that the select board vote to authorize the town administrator to sign the manufacturing product manufacturer license for Community Care Collective located at 547 Great Road, Littleton?
So moved.
I was
Thank
just
you.
gonna say second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
See the breadth support I
Unanimous.
had for that?
Yeah, I don't know how you did that.
Okay.
And you threw it over there.
Matthew?
Matthew,
Get him?
stop playing Angry Birds.
Angry Birds. People still play that?
RFI for senior housing.
So,
Take your reign.
sure, this is something that was brought up last time we talked about this, was kind of when we were drafting it in executive session, and it was on June 23rd-ish of this year. The plan was always to issue it in the fall. We're ready to issue it now, so not much, if anything, has changed other than making my name and putting more specific dates in it and so forth. We're ready to issue it. We're just looking for the select board to authorize us to issue that by Friday.
Does anyone have comments that they would like to raise on this?
We didn't include a number of housing.
No, this is
Right.
just as vanilla as 30,000 feet, and
Okay.
it's, they'll come back with, you know, I'm sure hopefully we get a lot of different
Right,
inquiries into the property.
okay,
Yeah.
all right, great.
So, ready for motion? Okay.
Move the select board authorize the town administrator to issue the request for information for affordable senior housing at Town Hall campus.
Second.
Motion made by Chuck, seconded by Cindy. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Motion carries 4-0. Thank you. Minutes of August 22nd. I have reviewed them. I read through them today. I didn't find anything that struck me as egregious or incorrect. So,
Same.
if anyone has comments, then let's go for a motion.
Move that the select board vote to approve the meeting minutes of August 22nd, 2022.
Second.
Motion made by Chuck, seconded by Mark. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Chuck, seconded by Cindy. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And we are adjourned. Thank you, Littleton. Good night.